There's about an hour from the bus. squeeze every drop out of life. Put it back with Pocari Sweat.
It's everything you wished for. Your site traffic is skyrocketing. Until this happens. Be careful what you wish for. Build your site on a platform that's engineered for success. So as traffic spikes, instead of overloading your servers, your site infrastructure scales to handle it. Backed up by tens of thousands of servers worldwide, maintaining 99.98% uptime. Wix.
Immunity everywhere. And so not the New York case on the substance of it, but that ruling there showing us that this idea from Meadows that he's working as a hearing on Monday, that he's working as the office of the president, that he's the chief of staff, so he should be immune from this. That was already shot down in SDNY. So that's interesting. The second one that I think is very interesting, and I've been telling you before, it was the case about documents in Florida, and it is. But it's about what happened in D.C. That recent Judge Cannon called out Jack Smith, the prosecutor, the special counsel, and she said, Jack Smith, why are you doing a grand jury in D.C. about my case? Why are you doing parallel grand juries? And Jack Smith replied, and this is what's so interesting. He said, because employee number 4 was represented by the same attorney as Nauta. And so we had a hearing. We had a hearing called the Garcia hearing, and the chief judge in D.C. got involved and got this employee number 4, his own attorney. And the second that attorney wasn't recommended by Trump, the second that attorney wasn't paid by Trump's PAC, guess what he did? He flipped on Trump. And that's why we had the superseding indictment. So I think it's telling we're going to see more and more of these flipping and more of these conflicts. And so I'm starting to read the tea leaves, the roadmap of what's going on. And that's where I see the most interest today, Josh.
All right. Andrew Lieb, legal analyst, friend of the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here as always and helping to break all this down. I mean, I need like 2 hours to talk with you about this case.
You know, one day you and I are going to put together the movie about the Trump, and it's going to be the longest movie that ever occurred because it just keeps coming with more and more information. I thank you for giving me the time to talk to everyone about it because we all need to know it does affect our life, and it's very important what happens politically and legally in our country. Thanks, Josh.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us as always. And I do want to take a live look here outside the Fulton County Jail. Once again, we do expect former President Trump will surrender at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. That right there is according to his Truth Social. He posted it a bit earlier before he did travel from New Jersey. Now he's mid-air headed over toward Fulton County. 6:07 on the East Coast, 3:07 on the West Coast. We're going to head to our first 2-minute commercial break of the hour. And on the other side, we're going to head out live over to Fulton County and be joined by Rob DiRienzo with our Fox 5 Atlanta team. We'll be right back here with more Live Now from Fox. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, and we are once again taking a live look outside the Fulton County Jail. As we know, we expect former President Trump to land and then head over to the jail to surrender on the charges that he does face following that indictment in connection with alleged election interference in the state of Georgia. I do want to bring in Rob DiRienzo with our Fox 5 Atlanta team to talk more about what he's seeing and the case in general. Rob, thanks so much for joining us again.
Hey, good evening to you. Well, as you can imagine, not only inside of the Fulton County Jail is it on full lockdown, but the area surrounding it, these streets are closed off. We are seeing some pedestrians and every once in a while a Trump supporter, but I want to take a step out of the way to show you what it's looking like at the jail. There's actually a sniper on the roof just preparing for this very significant event tonight. I don't know if you can see it as far as we can zoom, but the sheriff has indicated that the former president will be treated like any other arrestee, including with a mugshot. That would be the first in U.S. history for a former president. His legal team has already agreed with the district attorney to a $200,000 bond, which is more than any of the other 18 defendants. So really, this is kind of a formality, but again, he will have his fingerprints and he will be processed and he will have that mugshot taken here tonight. We're expecting all of that to happen around 7:30 later this evening.
And we do know that there are some supporters who have been there with signs. They've had essentially everything there as they are speaking with members of the media and there to show support. I believe when we spoke to you last time, you said they're on the other side of the jail. Are there a lot of people that are out there just waiting on Trump's arrival?
There are quite a few. Actually, you can see some bicyclists who just rode up behind me, but the mass of the protesters, I'd say there were about 100 protesters out there earlier today. They're on the Rice Street side, which, as I mentioned to you earlier, is a little further away from where we expect the inmate intake, where the former president will appear later. But there are a lot of people who just live in Atlanta who are coming to look at this spectacle. There's media from all over the globe here in Fulton County outside the jail waiting for the former president's arrival later tonight.
And how quick of an appearance do we expect this to be? Because it sounds like it's essentially he's booked, a photo's taken, and then he's out on his way.
Well, I got to be honest, anybody who's had any experience with the Fulton County Jail can attest to how inefficient it is in there. A lot of the times for your average everyday inmate or arrestee, they'd be held in there for some time as all of this paperwork is processed. We expect a far more expedited process for the former president later this evening, especially since he has that agreement with the district attorney's office. So it's really not clear how long this whole process will take, but we do know it will be a lot quicker than many other inmates who have to go through this process.
All right, Rob DiRienzo there with our Fox 5 Atlanta team. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you.
All right, you are taking a live look once again over outside the Fulton County Jail. We have been checking in with our Fox 5 Atlanta team, and I do actually want to take you to the start of their 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time newscast, where they had several different reporters out there. Let's play that for you here, raw and unfiltered.
5 News at 6 starts right now.
Former President Trump's private jet took off from Newark, New Jersey about 40 minutes ago. He's now on his way to Atlanta to surrender at the Fulton County Jail tonight. Mr. Trump, one of 19 co-defendants accused of trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election.
As we all wait for the former president's arrival, his supporters and his critics gathered outside the Fulton County Jail. Good evening. Thanks for joining us at 6 o'clock. I'm Alex Whitler.
And I'm Russ Spencer. All eyes are on the Fulton County Jail for Mr. Trump, but more than half of the other 18 co-defendants have already turned themselves in. 11 of them have surrendered to authorities ahead of the noon deadline tomorrow, including 2 more today. Former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Harrison Floyd, processed with mugshots and released on bond.
Tonight we have team coverage outside the jail and at the airport. We begin with Fox 5's Randy Travis at the jail. Randy, what's the latest there?
Hi, Alex. We're expecting Donald Trump now to arrive probably around 8 o'clock or so. It all depends on how much residual rush hour traffic there is between Hartsfield and here. But we have seen all day a heightened sense of security here at the Fulton County Jail. They have a lot of reporters, a lot of Trump supporters, and some Trump critics all squeezed into about a 1-block area across the street from the jail. But we're all here for the same reason, to see the main defendant in this historic case.
I have no idea who that is.
Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labat inspected the scene on Rice Street, accompanied by heavily armed deputies. He's vowed to treat Donald Trump like any other defendant, but it's clear a former president will be handled much differently. A bond has already been set at $200,000. Mr. Trump will have to put up 10%, $20,000 cash to be released. When he arrives in Atlanta, he'll have a new attorney representing him. Prominent defense attorney Steve Sadow, who has had many celebrities as clients, filed paperwork this morning announcing his entrance into the case. And as you mentioned, the 10th and 11th defendants surrendered earlier today. That is former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Black Voices for Trump head Harrison Floyd. Meadows was released on a $100,000 bond. That was worked out before. Floyd, I understand, is still here in the Fulton County Jail. Remember, he's accused of harassing Fulton County election worker Ruby Freeman. But earlier this year, he's also accused of attacking an FBI agent who was trying to serve him some sort of legal papers. So perhaps that arrest may be complicating the bond arrangements for Mr. Floyd here. Earlier this afternoon, the judge in this case, Scott McAfee, approved a scheduling agreement for one of the defendants who has filed a speedy trial motion. That's Ken Chesborough. He set an arraignment date for September 6th and a trial for October 23rd of this year. But this is interesting. In his order, he said, quote, "At this time, these deadlines do not apply to any co-defendant." Trump attorney Sadow had already filed a motion saying he wanted to sever Mr. Trump from the rest of the defendants. It'll be interesting to see if he still goes with that because of what Judge McAfee said in his order. But again, we're all waiting here probably around 8 o'clock or so tonight before the former president of the United States pulls in and surrenders here at the Fulton County Jail. Reporting live from the Fulton County Jail, Randy Travis, Fox 5 News. Back to you.
Kenneth Chesborough, one of the president's personal attorneys, knows that he's entitled to a speedy trial and has asked for it. Speaking of speedy, let's emphasize that the former president may not be in the Fulton County Jail for very long. Isn't that right?
That is exactly right. Yeah, he has worked out an arrangement. Of course, it's a $200,000 bond. He has the highest bond of any of the 19 defendants. He has to post 10% of that, so $20,000 before he can walk out. But I understand he'll only be in there for about 20 minutes. Obviously get his fingerprints done, a mugshot taken, be processed, and then released to head back to Hartsfield and back home to New Jersey.
All right, Randy, we know you will be there ready for it all. Thank you.
Well, a federal judge has set a September 18th hearing date for former DOJ official Jeffrey Clark's motion to move his Fulton County case to federal court. Clark says his actions cited in the Fulton County indictment were part of his duties as a DOJ official. He argues that protects him from state charges.
The Fulton County DA's office has until September 5th to respond to Mr. Clark's motion. Now, today's ruling allows the Fulton County proceedings to continue in the meantime.
Supporters of the former president and some of his detractors have taken up positions outside the Fulton County Jail.
Fox 5's Tyler Fingert continues our live team coverage now from the jail with that part of the story. Tyler.
Alex, good evening to you. More than 100 demonstrators have packed Rice Street right outside the Fulton County Jail. Most of them are former President Donald Trump's supporters, and they have braved this heat just for a chance to see him, hopefully, and to give him support as he walks inside the Fulton County Jail.
We're talking about truth.
Former President Donald Trump's supporters outnumbered those against him outside the Fulton County Jail Thursday. Supporters with flags, shirts, and plenty of MAGA gear lined the road waiting for the former president to surrender.
Trump didn't give up on us, and I'm not giving up on Trump. I'm going to support him all the way through.
It's important to be out here to stand up for this witch hunt.
This guy's taking shot after shot. He's done nothing wrong but fight for us.
The show of support comes as former President Trump faces his fourth indictment this year. He's one of 19 named in the Fulton County election meddling case and is set to turn himself into the county jail less than 24 hours before the noon Friday deadline. Some supporters say they're most excited for his mugshot.
You know, if they do a mugshot, it's all over. That will be a rally cry, kind of like remember the Alamo.
While there's plenty of supporters of the former president, not everyone is upset he'll soon be booked into jail.
I knew that there were going to be people out here offering support for him, and so I wanted to make sure that Fani and the folks who are trying to hold him account had support as well.
Law enforcement put up barricades to keep demonstrators away from the jail. Some supporters of Mr. Trump drove hours just to be here.
I just want him to stay strong. I'm really concerned about him. He takes so many hits, and he's older now. We want to keep him healthy and strong.
The whole world is just watching what we're doing to our former president. It's embarrassing, not only for the country, but I mean, we look like clowns.
In a social media post, the former president says he expects to be here at the Fulton County Jail at about 7:30 tonight, but he did leave Newark Airport a little late, so that's unclear how what exact time he'll be showing up here. But the supporters I spoke with say they will be here for him when he shows up. We're live outside the Fulton County Jail tonight. Tyler Fingert, Fox 5 News.
Former President Trump will land really in less than 2 hours.
Yeah, sometime after 7 o'clock. Fox 5's Eric Perry is live for us with the latest. Eric?
Yeah, Alex, Russ, good evening to you both. This place has been secured for the past 2 hours. I'm going to move out the way and kind of show you. Earlier, there was a big motorcycle presence here, but you can see Atlanta police, and if you look further here, they're really blocking this entrance and scanning each and every person that it's been through. I do want to get you to some video of that motorcycle procession coming here. This is the signature entrance of Hartsfield-Jackson. A more private entrance is where we will see that really well-known plane that is really goes hand in hand when you think of former President Trump here. We've seen different SUVs believed to be a part of the motorcade. That is kind of off to the side in a holding area, we believe, as really they are preparing to take him via motorcade and escort to the Fulton County Jail. Now, earlier, cameras caught a motorcade taking him to his plane in New Jersey. We do know he is on board that flight heading right here to Hartsfield-Jackson. Should be here in the next hour and a half to 2 hours. But do want to bring you back out here live. Just kind of want to show you to the right here behind this black fence. We've seen a lot of police cars in there. We see a helicopter that came in. We see several vans and several SUVs believed to be a part of that motorcade. We have been talking with the Secret Service and the different agencies out here, all hands on deck as they're really securing this area. Again, we're all eyes on deck and all hands on deck, excuse me, as they prepare for Mr. Trump to arrive here in the next 2 hours. Of course, we'll be here for you live as soon as his wheels touch down. That's the latest here at Hartsfield-Jackson. I'm Eric Perry, Fox 5 News.
Eric, thank you. We know former President Trump is expected to be processed with a mugshot tonight. What else should we expect?
Attorney Fred Smith Jr. joins us now. He's a law professor at Emory University. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, of course, everyone wants to know about this difference in opinion. Chesborough wants a speedy trial. Trump doesn't. So can you break that down for us and what we can expect?
Yes, so one of the co-defendants, Chesborough, has filed a motion for a speedy trial. And under the 6th Amendment of the Constitution, people are guaranteed a right to a speedy trial. And under Georgia law, a speedy trial is one that takes place within 2 terms. And terms last in Fulton County for a handful of months. So the current term ends on October 31st. It appears that this trial is going to be held at the end of the next term in late October. A judge has signed off on that today, but of course, as you note, that sets up a really kind of remarkable set of circumstances where other defendants are seeking delay rather than a speedy trial.
And they have a 6th Amendment right to have adequate counsel, and they could argue that 2 months isn't enough to prepare, right?
They could argue that. They could also argue that it's prejudicial for them to be on trial together. And right. I think we'll probably see a lot of motions of that sort going forward.
But what about the timing as it relates to his other indictments?
Yeah, so on that, although you might not see formal coordination between the various courts, what you are likely to see is judges paying close attention to the various dockets, right? So you have the docket in the Southern District of Florida, one federal case, you have a New York case, you have a DC case, now you have an Atlanta case. So the judges are going to have to pay close attention to the scheduling on those various dockets.
Last question. The former president, as we understand, is going to have a mugshot tonight. The purpose of a mugshot is to identify the person. Who's more photographed in the world than Donald Trump? Are Trump supporters reporters, do they have a point when they say perhaps there's some aspect of trying to humiliate him by subjecting him to that?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a district attorney who is intent on ensuring that everyone is treated the same to the extent possible. And that's what we're seeing here, right? There's other individuals who might be highly recognizable, right, who also get mugshots, and that's what's happening with the former president.
Okay, thank you so much for breaking that down in layman's terms. We appreciate your time.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Well, be sure to stay with Fox 5 as we continue to bring you the developments in this story. Download the Fox 5 Atlanta app for all the latest breaking news alerts and updates. David?
All right, a big thank you to our Fox 5 Atlanta team as they are covering this around the clock. We are dipping into some of their coverage, and coming up later tonight, they'll be reporting for us. We had Rob DiRienzo a short time ago out there in Fulton County. They have several reporters, as you saw there, and they are going to join us sporadically here throughout the night as we continue to follow this from each and every angle. Again, you are taking a live look in Fulton County, Georgia, right outside of the jail, where in just about an hour or so, it does appear that former President Trump will surrender in connection with that ongoing Georgia election case. We know he does face 13 felony counts. This is a huge story that we are going to follow from each and every angle. We also have our friends over at Fox News following it as well. Rebecca Castor just filing this report.
Security is tight in Georgia as former President Donald Trump turns himself in at the Fulton County Jail. With Secret Service in tow, Donald Trump is surrendering to authorities in Georgia. He's agreed to pay a $200,000 bond for 13 felony counts in connection with his actions to overturn the 2020 election results.
The actual arraignment will be in early September, where there will be cameras in the courtroom.
Just hours before his appearance, Trump replaced his lead attorney with Atlanta-based criminal defense lawyer Stephen Sadow. In a statement, Sadow argued the case is political, saying, quote, prosecutions intended to advance or serve the ambitions and careers of political opponents of the president have no place in our justice system. This as House Judiciary Republicans launch a probe into Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis to determine whether she used federal dollars in her investigation. The committee writing in a letter, quote, it is noteworthy that just 4 days before this indictment, you launched a new campaign fundraising website that highlighted your investigation into President Trump. Despite his legal troubles, Trump's supporters are standing by him. Dozens rallied outside the Fulton County Jail behind barricades and in front of sheriff's deputies.
It doesn't matter if we have to vote for him while he's sitting in a jail cell. We will support President Donald Trump.
As for when a trial could begin, prosecutors are now proposing an October 23rd start date after one co-defendant requested a speedy trial. Trump's team is opposing this and plans to file a motion to sever his case from any defendant that wants a speedy trial. In Atlanta, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Rebecca, thank you so much. Taking a live look here over at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. I actually believe this might be one of the smaller airports, but it is where we are going to see former President Trump arrive really any moment now. He is expected to surrender at the Fulton County Jail, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, our Fox 5 Atlanta team did report that he took off a little bit later than expected from New Jersey. That could temporarily delay the situation when he does turn himself in, likely to happen maybe closer to 8 o'clock. But again, he did post on his Truth Social page that he expects to surrender at the Fulton County Jail, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Our coverage will continue right here on Live Now from Fox. Let's head to a quick 2-minute commercial break, and on the other side, Lexi Petrovich over in Phoenix will be in the hot seat with all of your top stories, live events, headlines, everything you need to know on this Thursday, August 24th. You're watching Live Now from Fox.
And welcome back inside live now from Fox. I'm Lexi Petrovich. It is 6:30, just past the 6:30 mark Eastern time. That means we are 1 hour away from when former President Donald Trump says he is going to be surrendering at the Fulton County Jail. And you can see that we have a live look here from outside of there right now. Thanks so much for being with us here on this Thursday. I'm Lexi Petrovich. A lot of live coverage that we want to continue to bring you here now involving the fourth indictment of the former president, the first ever to face criminal charges, and also the first ever former president that will be expected to take a mugshot here. And we have a very busy show ahead to bring you through this, talking with many of our reporters there in Atlanta on the ground, also talking with legal analysts as we break down everything that's happening moment by moment. You can see here we have a couple of live looks on your screen right now. Let's start with the top right. You're taking a live look there at the airport in Atlanta, where the former president is expected to be landing here very soon before surrendering at the Fulton County Jail as he's en route from Bedminster. That flight about 2 hours or so in length. And in the middle box there, you see a live look from outside of the Fulton County Courthouse. And on the bottom right-hand side of your screen as well, it's another live look from outside of the Fulton County Jail. So we have all of these different images that we're going to continue to show you here throughout the evening as we bring you this coverage live as it's happening. And this is all also occurring on the eve of the deadline for the former president and his 18 co-defendants to surrender, that deadline given by the district attorney, Fani Willis. So he is expected to be there by 7:30 Eastern. That's what he has said on Truth Social. Speaking of, we do have a new statement from the former president saying here that he just posted on Truth Social. Why is there so much murder in Atlanta? Why is there so much violent crime? People are afraid to go outside to buy a loaf of bread. One big reason is that failed district attorney Fani Willis, who is campaigning and fundraising off Get Trump, much like the others, doesn't have the time, money, or interest to go after the real criminals, even the really violent ones that are destroying Atlanta and its once beautiful culture and way of life. This is yet another sad day in America. So hearing from him on Truth Social as he's en route to Fulton County, where he will surrender there. Let's bring you the very latest here from Fox's Rebecca Castor. She's there in Fulton County with more.
Security is tight in Georgia as former President Donald Trump turns himself in at the Fulton County Jail. With Secret Service in tow, Donald Trump is surrendering to authorities in Georgia. He's agreed to pay a $200,000 bond for 13 felony counts in connection with his actions to overturn the 2020 election results.
The actual arraignment will be in early September, where there will be cameras in the courtroom.
Just hours before his appearance, Trump replaced his lead attorney with Atlanta-based criminal defense lawyer Steven Sadow. In a statement, Sadow argued the case is political, saying, quote, prosecutions intended to advance or serve the ambitions and careers of political opponents of the president have no place in our justice system. This as House Judiciary Republicans launch a probe into Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis to determine whether she used federal dollars in her investigation. The committee writing in a letter, quote, it is noteworthy that just 4 days before this indictment, you launched a new campaign fundraising website that highlighted your investigation into President Trump. Despite his legal troubles, Trump's supporters are standing by him. Dozens rallied outside the Fulton County Jail behind barricades and in front of sheriff's deputies.
It doesn't matter if we have to vote for him while he's sitting in a jail cell. We will support President Donald Trump.
As for when a trial could begin, prosecutors are now proposing an October 23rd start date after one co-defendant requested a speedy trial. Trump's team is opposing this and plans to file a motion to sever his case from any defendant that wants a speedy trial. In Atlanta, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
All right, Rebecca, thanks. We're taking a live look here from Atlanta as our crews are overhead the airport there. Security, as you can imagine, is very high right now as we wait for the former president to land there. And there has been a lot that has happened today. Let's also play out some video for you here of Trump's security, Secret Service leaving Bedminster earlier today. You can see some of this video as he heads to Atlanta. Now, Trump was charged on August 14th with 13 counts, including violating the state's Anti-Racketeering Act, soliciting a public officer to violate their oath, conspiring to impersonate a public officer, conspiring to commit forgery in the first degree, and conspiring to file false documents. The sheriff has said Trump's processing will be like any other with a mugshot. His 18 co-defendants, including his former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, have all trickled into the jail for their bookings over the past few days, and we've continued to bring you that coverage. You also have some video here of different groups. We have some protesters that were out, along with some supporters. They're for Trump as they have all gathered. This individual here in the jail suit, we've seen him quite a bit. He was also in Florida as well with his lock him up signs. I believe he was also included in a video where we watched police tackle him to the ground in Florida when Trump was there for his court appearance at that time. And if you've been with us with our coverage, we bring you these live looks. So a lot of times these moments that can get escalate very quickly, we often capture them in our live camera feeds that we continue to bring you. So some images here of people who have been coming out, again, those that are in support of the former president and those who are against him. Let's play out what some of his supporters had to say here next.
Well, if President Trump actually comes by here, he sees that, and it's impacting on him. I've heard him talk about it before. He loves seeing the flags and people out there cheering him on. And so we appreciate our gladiator who's fighting for our freedom, and I think it encourages him.
I just wanted to show my support for Trump and to let people know there are minorities that support not only Trump, but conservative values.
All right, another live look here from outside of the courthouse there in Fulton County, and we will continue to bring you all of these live images, several of them from just outside of the jail there. And you can see to the corner off to the right of your screen where many people are lined up. And again, security, as you can imagine, that is going to be top of mind throughout this whole process. We have a couple different reports we want to play out for you here from our team at Fox 5 in Atlanta. Again, a couple of their reporters that we're going to be continuously speaking to throughout our programming this evening, talking about the security efforts. Let's play this out for you next.
Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labatt inspected the scene on Rice Street, accompanied by heavily armed deputies. He's vowed to treat Donald Trump like any other defendant, but it's clear a former president will be handled much differently. A bond has already been set at $200,000. Mr. Trump will have to put up 10%, $20,000 cash to be released. When he arrives in Atlanta, he'll have a new attorney representing him. Prominent defense attorney Steve Sadow, who has had many celebrities as clients, filed paperwork this morning announcing his entrance into the case.
Okay, and let's play out another example of what our team at Fox 5 in Atlanta is saying that they are doing for security, because as you can imagine, people through this area that you're looking at here outside of the Fulton County Jail have been walking through the streets as they've expressed their opinions on everything that is happening today. And now that it's getting closer to that actual moment that the former president will be arriving to be booked into jail there and ultimately get his mugshot taken, so we've heard from the sheriff, they're going to have to start moving back. Security is going to start to get a lot heavier here as this gets closer. Here again is this update from Fox 5.
The Fulton County Sheriff's Office issued a stern warning Thursday afternoon that anyone caught in an unauthorized area on jail grounds risked being taken into custody by law enforcement. Fulton County Sheriff's deputies are manning checkpoints at the main entrance to the jail on Rice Street and the Sally Port on Jefferson Street.
There's helicopters above us you can hear, and there's the police cars behind us. And I was down there by the jail. It's very, very big presence, automatic weapons with some folks and so forth. So it's very serious.
Motorists are being diverted around the area, which is now teeming with news media, Trump supporters, and protesters in the hours leading up to the former president's appearance.
It's a historic event. I'm thankful to be on my bicycle, to be able to move around a little bit outside of the traffic. It looks like a nightmare out there.
Trump's planned appearance not the only game in town Thursday night. Thousands of football fans will be in Atlanta for the Falcons game. An APD spokesman tells Fox 5 they don't foresee Trump's visit having an impact on the area surrounding Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Spectators we talked to at the jail had mixed reaction to the heightened security.
There aren't a lot of people out here when you really look at it. It's not crowds of supporters or what have you. And I just feel like the security can be used for better things.
There's some people that are a little touched, you know, on both sides. So I think, there was a show of presence, and I think that wasn't a bad idea.
All right, well, meanwhile, former chief of staff to the former President Trump also surrendered today. This comes a day after Rudy Giuliani surrendered yesterday. So continuing to bring you all of these updates, not only for Trump himself, but also for his 18 co-defendants who are also included in this. What we're going to do right now, we're going to step away for a quick commercial break here. We're going to continue to bring you all of these different live images as well. But when we come back, we're going to be speaking on the phone with Live Now's Andrew Kraft. If you were with us yesterday, you saw his incredible coverage as he was in Milwaukee, bringing us live updates, pre and post debate analysis for the first GOP presidential debate. Well, we'll be talking about how the former president's name did come up during that debate, plus what we can expect once he arrives there in Fulton County. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick 2-minute break. Welcome back. Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Lexi Petrovich. We appreciate you joining us as we take you through all of these major events that are happening today, most notably the former president, Donald Trump, as he is getting ready to land in Georgia, where he will surrender to the Fulton County Jail, ultimately be booked, receive a mugshot before then heading back to Bedminster later this evening. And from start to finish, we have you covered here as we take you through all of these different live images. And let's show you some of those right now here. You can see first we have our Sky Fox cameras overhead here in Atlanta as we wait for the former president to arrive. It's about a 2-hour flight there from New Jersey to Georgia. So going to continue to keep an eye here on this feed. We also have a couple of live looks as well outside of the Fulton County Jail here. So there's one for you, as well as another angle to give you a look at some of that extra security that's starting to come in as people are pushed off to the sides. Many of them in support of the former president, and of course some that are protesting what he has done and what they believe that they agree he is accused of in now his 4th indictment. We also have a live look here from the courthouse out of Fulton County as well. So a lot that is going to be happening here in the next little bit, a little under an hour or so until the former president says he is going to be arriving at the Fulton County Jail and ultimately surrendering. What we want to do right now, though, is bring in my colleague, Andrew Kraft. We've been talking with him as he brought us all of this debate coverage yesterday in Milwaukee, and he's done a great job of bringing us everything from there. He's actually on his way back now to our studio here in Arizona, so he's at the airport and is kind enough to be joining us here. Let's see if we can get him on the phone. Andrew, are you able to hear me?
Yes, Lexi, I have you. Thanks.
All right, great. Thanks so much for joining us from the airport. I know you have a busy travel day there. But Andrew, let's first start. Obviously, a very big 2 days, beginning with the debate yesterday, the first GOP debate. Let's first just start with your takeaways there, and then we'll get into how the former president's name, of course, naturally did come up as he wasn't in attendance.
Well, yeah, Lexi, you're right, because the moderators, Brett Baer, Martha McCallum, they put on the screen for all the viewers last night a live shot outside of the Fulton County Jail there in Georgia. It was kind of a predicate. It was kind of a setup to their question about former President Trump, his indictments, whether or not, if he's convicted, will all of these candidates on the stage last night still support him if he's the nominee. So Asa Hutchinson didn't raise his hand. Everyone else did. Chris Christie was kind of a little mild-mannered about it and kind of half raised his hand, but that was kind of the Trump part of the debate last night. And so, you know, you juxtapose what's happening today with what happened last night. It's a really interesting time in the country. It's a really interesting time for Republican politics writ large. But, you know, Lexi, you and I we've covered the last 3 indictments, the last 3 arraignments. This one is so different, though, and I'll tell the viewers why. All the last 3 indictments, the former president showed up to be arraigned at a courthouse. Today is not an arraignment. Today is a booking in jail, and he'll be out on bond, $200,000. It's also not happening at a courthouse, Lexi. It's happening at a jail in a county, in Fulton County, there in Georgia. So there are so many differences with this particular indictment, with this particular case that we're seeing right now. And also, we have to know the transparency. Remember, you know, 2 of the indictments and arraignments we saw were in federal court. You know, we don't get cameras inside federal court. Sometimes we get courtroom sketches, and that's about it, and we see the entrance and the exit. But throughout the Fani Willis indictments and the trial that she wants to bring, there's going to be probably a camera inside the courtroom, and we're going to be seeing all this unfold with not only Donald Trump, but the 18 other co-defendants, like you said, Lexi. So that is different. And so we are going to have a very, very close window into these legal proceedings. And of course, Lexi, everyone's talking about the mugshot. We've seen Rudy Giuliani. We've seen Sidney Powell. We've seen Mark Meadows' mugshot. We're going to see Donald Trump's mugshot later tonight. And that is a stunning moment in American politics. I don't think it's ever happened before to see a former president take a mugshot because he is indicted and charged with crimes there in this jurisdiction in Fulton County. So that's why this is different from the other indictments. I think it's really important for the viewers to know that, Lexi.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. Great job explaining all of that there. Let's also now talk about the fact that, of course, you mentioned that they showed that live image there, but of course they were going to ask all of the candidates at the debate yesterday their thoughts on what's happening with Donald Trump, if they would potentially pardon him as well. What were your thoughts on what each of the candidates had to say? There were a lot of heated moments there.
So what's interesting about that question, Lexi, is that was not a question by the moderators, you know, about the pardon question. That was a question Vivek Ramaswamy posed himself to the other candidates on the stage. Will they or won't they commit to pardoning Donald Trump if he is convicted of any of these crimes in these 4 indictments? So he was kind of freewheeling there. You know, he kind of took it upon himself. We've heard him early on when he announced his campaign. That was one of the, you know, key focal points of his campaign. He wanted to get his other candidates, his other contenders really on the record, you know, about that question. And so he wanted to take that opportunity last night on the debate stage as well. But, you know, frankly, if you were watching last night, none of the candidates really budged on that question. I don't think any of them answered it, even as Ramaswamy still posed it on the stage itself.
Sure. And then, of course, right now, Andrew, as we're talking with you, we're giving viewers a couple of different live images here of as we wait for Trump to land there in Atlanta. And then all eyes will be on the Fulton County Jail, the mugshot, the entire process that comes from here. And as you said, this has never happened before. Now, the fourth indictment of a former president who is facing criminal charges again for a fourth time, and also the fact that no president before has ever had a mugshot taken. So a lot is going on here. And obviously, when you were in Milwaukee, too, you've had the chance to speak with so many different people, officials, and also voters who are there gathered around Pfizer Forum as well. So give us a little more insight of what you heard from people, both about the debate and about Trump heading to Fulton County.
Yeah, what was interesting, Lexi, was, outside of the debate venue, there were a lot of Trump supporters with signs, with T-shirts, with hats. Essentially, all of them said, Trump is innocent. This is a political witch hunt, kind of echoing the verbiage that we have heard from the former president on Truth Social all throughout the spring and summer. And so they were making their voices heard. Of course, he was not on that debate stage last night. A glaring absence, the elephant not in the room, as everyone was saying last night. But he was still so present, and I was kind of looking for whether or not he would suck all the energy out of that room last night. And he really didn't. I mean, other than that question by Martha and Brett about, January 6th, and all the indictments against the former president, they really kept it to the issue: immigration, education, the economy, Bidenomics, and other issues like that, abortion as well. So the entire debate wasn't primarily focused on the former president, but you could feel that it was just atmospheric in the room, pervasive throughout, especially knowing what was coming the next day, today, the Fulton County booking and the mugshot and the fingerprinting. And so, I can't see the live pictures you're seeing right now, but I can imagine there's a lot of protesters and also a lot of supporters of the former president kind of gathered there outside of the jail. I think it's really interesting, Lexi, as well, to talk about what I've seen reported today, that Fani Willis might want to speed up the trial for some of the defendants. Now, remember, when she announced the indictment Monday, August the 14th, I believe that was Monday night, she said as much that she wanted to try all of these defendants together. Now, Lexi, all these legal analysts we've spoken to over the course of the last week and a half said that is near impossible. That will take so long. And so some of these defendants are requesting a more expedited trial, including Kenneth Cheesebro. He's one of the defendants as well, one of the architects of the fake electors scheme and strategy, saying that he wants a trial this October, Lexi. And so it seems like Fani Willis is playing along with that, saying she would agree to that. That's the reporting I've seen. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I've seen the same. That's something that we're going to be speaking with legal analysts about, as well as the trial date and where we think things are going to go from here. And also, Andrew, interestingly enough, and this is something I know that you've talked about many times with all of the experts that you've brought on as well, is that despite all of this that's happened, the former president's polling strength has actually increased in many of these incidents. And it says a lot about the people that are backing him through these 4 now indictments.
Yeah, that is definitely a political question, right? And there's this weird paradox at play where the more legal trouble Donald Trump is in, the more his support amongst his supporters, amongst his primary base, goes up. And so we've seen that after every indictment. And that was kind of the moment for some of these candidates last night on the debate stage to kind of, tap in some of that Trump strength to see if they could break through that, Trump-based wall. So I have yet to see some polling to suggest whether or not anyone, fell in the polls, rose in the polls. We'll be looking for that in the next couple of days. But you're right, Lexi. I mean, that is, the paradox of all of this. The more legal trouble Donald Trump is in, the more power he gains among his base of supporters. But that's for the primary, Lexi, right? The general election is a whole different ballgame. General election voters, among whom independents make up a large quantity, they feel differently about all of these indictments.
Yeah, certainly a lot to talk about, and you know, just especially the significance of this being a former president who's running yet again, and breaking down all of the what ifs and what happens from here questions, and we'll continue to do that here. Andrew, we always appreciate your great knowledge on all of these topics, especially after your very busy week there in Milwaukee. And before we go to commercial break, one last one for this hour, Andrew, is there anything else that you want to share with us, whether it be about your time in Milwaukee or just looking ahead to what happens this evening?
Yeah, of course, I've been talking to people at the airport today, you know, asking them if they watched the debate last night, asking who they thought might have won the debate, who might have lost the debate. You know, so I've been getting a lot of interesting answers, a very, very mixed bag of how people, you know, are responding to the candidates on that stage last night, asking family members, friends, what they think. So it's been an interesting kind of, you know, panoply of opinions amongst people I've reached out to and spoken with all throughout the day today. But we got a lot of primary debates coming up. But unfortunately, Donald Trump said he's not going to be at any of them because he doesn't feel like he has to. That is something we've spoken with about some of that with his supporters, including, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, saying that, you know, they think the primary is over, Lexi. They don't think he needs to be there. They think he is going to be the nominee, that it is a foregone conclusion. The debates are merely just a formality at this point. So it's still early. That's what I've been saying. It's very, very early in the process. We're, you know, still, 5-6 months away from the first contest in Iowa next January. So a lot can happen in that period. We have to wait and see. Lexi.
Right, yeah, and it has been interesting to hear from every different voters on this. Some saying he hasn't earned my vote yet, even though I may have voted for him previously, and others saying, well, I understand why he wouldn't be there. So it will be interesting, especially considering that he has posted on Truth Social that not only this last debate, but all of them, he doesn't plan to attend them. So we'll continue to follow all of that, of course. And Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back in the studio tomorrow, I believe, and looking forward to seeing you on your return. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Lexi. See you.
All right. Thanks so much to Andrew for joining us there from the airport as he's on his way back from Milwaukee right now after covering the first GOP debate there. And you're taking a live look here right now over the skies of Atlanta as our Sky Fox team is there right now, continuing to track the very latest. We've been seeing these different images of cameras zooming into different planes that are coming in to see if it is Trump's plane that is almost arriving. None of them so far have been his, but continuing to bring you all of these live images. And we have so much more to bring you. We're going to be talking with some of our team at Fox 5 in Atlanta, legal analysts, all of that coming up here in the next few hours as we bring you all of this happening live, raw, and unfiltered. Let's take a quick commercial break, bring you more of this coverage when we come back. Welcome back into Live Now from Fox. Thanks so much for being with us, giving you several live looks here as we continue to wait for the former president to land in Georgia, where he will be booked and receive a mugshot related to those charges involving the 2020 election. So a live look there from outside of the Fulton County Jail. We also now have a ground shot as well from the airport. So continuing to check in with this view as well. And as I mentioned, we have several reporters we're going to be talking to here about the former president's arrival to Georgia. So let's leave this shot up for just a moment. We're going to get that situated and bring you a live report here in just moments. All right, you are taking a live look here from the airport on the ground, and it also appears we have a shot coming in. This looks like it is the former president's plane that is in the air right now. Let's leave this shot up for just a moment here as we watch him touch the ground there, coming to Atlanta from Bedminster. All right, you are watching here as Trump is landing there in Atlanta, where he will be heading to the Fulton County Jail next. And as I mentioned, we are going to be bringing you all of this coverage, talking with reporters on the ground there as this all continues. Right now, we want to go out to Fox 5's Randy Travis, who is on the ground there outside of the jail, I believe. Randy, tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing right now. I see a lot of different supporters, maybe some protesters behind you as well.
Yeah, it's been a steady arrival, I think you could say, of Trump supporters throughout the afternoon. Let me just kind of set the scene for you. A lot of increased security today, because obviously former President Trump is arriving. Far more security today than in the other days earlier this week where other people were surrendering. So you've got a lot of reporters, you've got a lot of Trump supporters, and you've got some Trump critics, and we're all squeezed into about a one-block section here across the street from the main entrance to the Fulton County Jail. We're sort of in a locked position. I'm going to just step aside for a second and let you sort of see what's going on behind me. A huge law enforcement presence out here. We saw Sheriff Pat Labatt, the Fulton County Sheriff, out here even earlier. I don't see him right now, but he was being guarded by deputies with heavily armed deputies. You can see some other Trump supporters walking by. It's been very hot out here. Temperatures close to 100 degrees. So you might think that emotions might rise with the temperatures, but so far, I mean, they've been very passionate, these supporters and the critics. But you know, nothing that would rise to the level of any concern. We earlier today actually saw Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. She walked down that same road from the jail here and talked to various reporters lined up across the street. Condemned the indictments, said she was here to support former President Trump when he arrives. And she's been the only, I guess, sort of celebrity we've seen out here so far. Former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows arrived earlier today. You know, he's one of the 19 under indictment. He surrendered, was allowed to leave on a $100,000 bond that was preset. And then the 11th person so far who's turned himself in is Harrison Floyd. He is or was the Black Voices for Trump head, who is accused of harassing one of the Fulton County election workers, Ruby Freeman. That's why he's under indictment. He is still in the Fulton County Jail right now because he couldn't work out a prearranged bond. And one of the reasons why could be because he was arrested earlier this year, accused of attacking an FBI agent who was trying to serve some legal papers on him. So he's out on bond for that, and now he's facing this, so it might take a little bit longer for him to work out his bond situation. Scott McAfee is the judge right now for all 19 of these defendants, and you may remember that DA Fonnie Willis announced that she wanted to try all 19 of them together. Well, one of the 19 has filed a motion asking for a speedy trial, and a judge granted that motion. His trial, and this is Ken Chesbrough we're talking about, is set now for October 23rd, just in a few months, with an arraignment on September the 6th. So that's the first time we'll see Mr. Chesbrough in court. He was one of the people accused of being part of the so-called fake elector scheme. So he has asked for a speedy trial. Typically, all the co-defendants then have to be tried unless they file motions to sever their cases. But the judge in his order said at this time these deadlines do not apply to any co-defendant. And that's good news, obviously, for Donald Trump. He hired a new attorney today, a man by the name of Steve Sadow, who's very familiar to us here in the Atlanta area. He's represented a lot of celebrities, T.I., Usher, over the years, and he actually filed a motion to have the case severed. But perhaps that's no longer necessary based on what the judge said today. So again, we are standing by here at the main entrance to the Fulton County Jail. There are actually two ways of getting in here, so it's a matter of which way the Secret Service decides to bring in Mr. Trump. The Jefferson Street side is on the back side, and that's, I would think, probably the more likely of the two. This is the Rice Street side, and that's obviously there's a lot of reporters here and a lot of Trump supporters here. I'm not sure, I haven't been to the other side of the jail. Not sure what the conditions are there, but perhaps they might be able to manage the crowds a little better. Secret Service I'm talking about. So if he just landed at Hartsfield, typically that's a 20 or 30 minute drive here. Longer, obviously, if you're fighting Atlanta rush hour traffic. Perhaps he'll have a police escort that will bring him here. Now it means he'll get here much sooner. So we're expecting to hear before 8 o'clock, and we will let you know what we see when that happens. Back to you.
Yeah, Randy, thanks so much for that very detailed report. It's been really great to see what's behind you there at the jail, where he's going to be heading. And then we also, you can't see this right now, but we have up for viewers another box where they're able to see his plane actually on the tarmac there at the airport before he heads over. So I know he's going to be there pretty soon there. You mentioned it's not too far of a drive. How long in total is this whole entire process supposed to take? And we've been hearing he possibly might speak afterwards. Is there any update on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. First of all, Donald Trump has a $200,000 bond that's been prearranged with DA Willis. She agreed to that. Obviously, he has as well. He has to put up about 10%, so $20,000. $200,000 is the highest bond of any of the 19 defendants. He's also considered the head of this alleged criminal enterprise, so that's understandable. When he arrives, he will be taken in, and as Sheriff Labatt said, he's going to be treated just like any other defendant. So that means he'll be fingerprinted, he'll have his mugshot taken, and then he'll be processed, fill out some paperwork, and that sort of thing. I'm told it will take only about 20 minutes because, I mean, he's the only game in town right now. They've cleared everybody out. So he'll have actually a quicker process than a typical defendant. And then he'll get back in his caravan, motorcade, and head back to Hartsfield. And yes, I understand he will make some statements on the tarmac there at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, just like he did in Washington, D.C. What we're interested in hearing, though, is what he says about the process, about the DA, about the city. He made some disparaging comments about Washington, D.C., if you remember. Said he saw graffiti and, crumbling buildings and that sort of thing, which The reporters who followed him said they didn't see when they were in his motorcade. He'll see some of that. There's a lot of homeless people here in Atlanta. He may see some of those folks in tents along the interstate when he comes in. But remember, he had a very specific bond stipulation. So once he's released on bond, he has to follow these instructions I have in my hand right here. A little bit to you. Or any property in the community. I'm not quite sure what that means, but that could mean he can't say anything indirectly threatening Fulton County, City of Atlanta. And then this is the biggest thing that he's agreed to. He doesn't fall it yet, not until he's actually out on bond, but it says the above shall include but are not limited to posts on social media or reposts of posts made by another individual on social media. And we know how much former President Trump likes to post on social media. He's already posted some things that are disparaging to the district attorney here in Fulton County. Interesting to see what he says on the tarmac before he gets in that plane, and of course what he posts on social media from tonight moving forward.
Yeah, Randy, thanks again for that update as well. We actually just had a statement we read to viewers before talking with you that he posted on Truth Social about Atlanta and the state of things. So interesting that you brought that up. You also mentioned the security there, and you can see the people that are out behind you despite the weather, how hot it is, how late it's getting. People are there for this moment. How have you seen things change from, say, earlier today, because I know people have been out there for quite some time, until now? Have you really seen that security presence ramp up?
Security's been tight all day, Lexi. I mean, but the crowds have shown up in the last hour or so, more so than ever today. And it may be because we've been reporting all day that we expect them to be here 7:30-ish, and why hang around in the Georgia sun all day if you can come here in the evening when the sun is finally setting and be able to see him hopefully come in. So yes, lots of folks here. I've heard some people singing "God Bless America." I've seen someone else in a jail costume saying, you know, jail, don't lock him up. And there's been some, I would say, spirited encounters between the two sides, but nothing that would involve fisticuffs or calling the deputies over to separate or take anybody, to jail. They've been relatively respectful, and I think now they're just pretty exhausted from those who have been here all day in the sun, and they're ready to see the man of the hour, the guy they've brought their chairs and their flags and their hats to see come into the Fulton County Jail.
Yeah, and we've got it all to show viewers as we continue to check in with you and your colleagues at Fox 5 in Atlanta. Randy, thanks so much for that update. I know we'll be talking with you again later through our programming, so we'll check back in with you in a little bit here, but appreciate this update for now.
Sounds good.
All right, and perfect timing. You can see him, the former president, walking down the plane there as he had just landed here in Atlanta with his red tie and dark colored suit, arriving there just about 7:15 Eastern time, getting into his Secret Service vehicles here, where he will then head to Fulton County, the jail there. And we've got cameras all over ready to watch this as it happens here. But perfect timing, as we were able to capture the former president as he walked off of his plane after arriving in Atlanta from Bedminster. And you heard Randy say there it's about a 20 to 30 minute drive. And we apologize for the shakiness here. This is what our footage, our coverage does sometimes. It's live, raw, and unfiltered. So a lot of what you see is what is happening in real time. And that's what makes our coverage unique here, as we're able to show you all of these different angles and different things that are happening in real time. So an overhead view here now of his plane. We just saw him walk off. He's going to head over to the jail next, and that process is expected to be pretty quick there. And then we will continue to take you through the aftermath of it as well. As Randy said, we might be hearing from him again at the airport. In the meantime, let's leave this shot up for just a moment, and we are going to be bringing you a couple other live reports here in just a few minutes. Stick with us. All right, you've been taking a live look here from the airport. We also want to show you this image as well. As you can see, a close-up ground shot as the former president has landed in Atlanta. He now is going to head over to the Fulton County Jail. And that's where we find Fox 5's Tyler Fingert, who's joining us live there as well. Tyler, we just spoke with your colleague Randy, and we see that you're also at the jail right now. Tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing on the grounds there, talking with folks.
Well, Alexi, good evening to you. Yeah, we are, a lot of people have been waiting all day for this moment. We now obviously do know that the motorcade with former President Donald Trump is moving. We're getting text messages from our team here on the ground here in Atlanta. So he is on the ground here in Fulton County. He is now making his way here to the jail and should be here probably within the next 25 to 30 minutes, maybe a little bit less than that, thanks to the fact that he will have a police escort to make his way here to the jail. We're just in the northwest portion of the city, and so that, again, should be about a 20 to 30-minute drive here. He will make his way to the jail, and lots of demonstrators have been out here all day. It started for most of the day at about 100 or so. It's been growing over the last hour or so with more folks coming on out. The majority of the people here are former President Donald Trump supporters. There are very few people who are anti-former President Trump. Most of them are here who are supporters of him, and so they really want to see him and offer support, and they've really braved the heat. It has been an extremely hot day out here. Normally we would probably have a tie and a jacket on, but it is just so incredibly hot. A lot of folks just braving the heat and basically just waiting for the former president to hopefully come by here. We're on the Rice Street side of the jail, which is towards the main entrance. We're thinking he's probably going to go towards the back entrance, a more secure area where we do have cameras, and obviously we'll cover it all for you guys on Live Now. But a lot of these folks are really hoping for that chance to be able to either see the former president, but also to make sure that he knows that he has a lot of support out here. And we talked with a lot of them throughout the day. Take a listen to what they were telling us as they were waiting for this moment.
We're talking about truth.
Former President Donald Trump's supporters outnumbered those against him outside the Fulton County Jail Thursday. Supporters with flags, shirts, and plenty of MAGA gear lined the road waiting for the former president to surrender.
Trump didn't give up on us, and I'm not giving up on Trump. I'm going to support him all the way through.
It's important to be out here to stand up for this witch hunt.
This guy's taking shot after shot. He's done nothing wrong but fight for us.
The show of support comes as former President Trump faces his fourth indictment this year. He's one of 19 named in the Fulton County election meddling case and is set to turn himself into the county jail less than 24 hours before the noon Friday deadline. Some supporters say they're most excited for his mugshot.
If they do a mugshot, it's all over. That will be a rally cry, kind of like remember the Alamo.
While there's plenty of supporters of the former president, not everyone is upset he'll soon be booked into jail.
I knew that there were going to be people out here offering support for him, and so I wanted to make sure that Fani and the folks who are trying to hold him account had support as well.
Law enforcement put up barricades to keep demonstrators away from the jail. Some supporters of Mr. Trump drove hours just to be here.
I just want him to stay strong. I'm really concerned about him. He takes so many hits, and he's older now. We want to keep him healthy and strong.
The whole world is just watching what we're doing to our former president. It's embarrassing, not only for the country, but, I mean, we look like clowns.
And again, the anticipation is building as former President Donald Trump makes his way here to the Fulton County Jail. We're not sure which entrance he is going to be making his way. One of my colleagues was putting into our channel that we're all talking on, and he was saying that there's some dump trucks being put in place over on the other side of the jail, the Jefferson Street side, which could indicate that they are getting ready to do a roadblock. So when the former president comes in, it is in a safer area for him. So that is the likely side. It does sound like he'll be making his way here to the jail. And I know you were talking with Randy Travis earlier, Lexi, but some of the things that we are expecting tonight that the former president will have done when he enters the jail, a fingerprinting along with a mugshot. And I was here yesterday when his former personal attorney and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani was booked and processed here at the Fulton County Jail. He was inside for about 45 minutes. and then made his way back out. It's not an entirely long process for these folks. They are expediting them considerably. Normally, a normal defendant who is arrested here in Fulton County, the processing can take several hours just because of the different things that have to unfold here in Fulton County. And so I just got a text message from one of our producers in our control room and in our newsroom. They're saying he's on I-75 right now, making his way, and will be here. They're estimating probably about 15 minutes or so at this point, and the interstate is shut down. So they are treating him like they normally would as they're trying to make the former president makes his way here to the Fulton County Jail. Lexi?
Yeah, Tyler, great reporting there. We actually have an image up for viewers right now so they can see him on the freeway. And you're right, it is blocked off as they normally would for someone of his status. And not only that, but we're also learning, too, that he's going to be treated the same as any other defendant with that mugshot that you mentioned in the booking process. So we will continue to check in with you and all of your colleagues at Fox 5 in Atlanta doing an incredible job reporting on yet another very significant day. So, Tyler, thanks so much for this update. We appreciate it.
I'll see you in a little bit. Thank you.
All right, so here's that full live view here on the freeway. You can see Secret Service escorting the former president to the Fulton County Jail. Let's leave the shot up for just a moment. All right, taking a live look here from the freeway. We're going to take a quick commercial break. On the other side of this, we're going to be talking with a legal analyst, breaking down all of the questions that so many people have. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm Lexi Petrovich. Thanks for being with us as we take you through all of this coverage as the former president, Donald Trump, heads to the Fulton County Jail, where he will be booked and receive a mugshot related to those charges from the 2020 election. Giving you a live look here overhead from the freeway as we have this aerial view as he heads there. And right before the break, he was about 15 minutes out or so from arriving at the jail, so he should be getting there pretty soon here. We also have another shot as well. As you can see, our crews have cameras on the ground following behind as we watch all of this happen here in real time. So we're going to continue to bring you this coverage as it's happening live, raw, and unfiltered here on Live Now from Fox. In the meantime, though, we want to bring in friend of the program, legal analyst Andrew Lieb, who's joining us here. Andrew, thanks so much. It's great to see you as always as we talk about all of these pressing questions. Let's first just begin with what today means, the significance of a former president now in his fourth indictment that he's facing, heading to the Fulton County Jail to receive a mugshot to get booked. Just the significance of this day.
Surreal. That's the word, Lexi. It's just purely surreal. And what's surreal is watching this motorcade and watching him make his way 15 minutes away. And yeah, you did say it's the fourth time, which is already numbing to me. The first time when we saw it in New York, mind blown. By the second and third times, Florida and DC, it was normative at this point. But why is it surreal today? Because Donald Trump's not getting booked in the courthouse. He's not getting special privileges where he doesn't get a mugshot. There's going to be a mugshot. There's going to be hide and wait. And guess what? He's going to a jail today. Can you just close your eyes and picture Donald Trump with his golden toilets in a jailhouse? It's mind-blowing. It's awe-instructing. And if he doesn't understand the gravity of the situation after today, I don't know that anything will make it real for him. But right now, this is a major ordeal. And I have to tell you, Lexi, what a shame that this is part of the history of the United States. I can't believe it's happening in my lifetime, Lexi.
Yeah, it is surreal to watch all of this happening. And of course, this is now the fourth indictment here. And in his previous court appearances, when this has all happened, he hadn't had to take a mugshot before or go through this process. So maybe explain to viewers why this time around we're seeing some differences.
Well, let's start off why the other three were different. And the other three were different because of special privileges. Meaning that if you or I were to go into New York County Court and we were going to go commit a crime that we were going to see something along the lines of New York City, just think about that for a second, Alvin Bragg, the DA, we would be getting mugshots. We would be treated like the felons that he's being charged with. That would happen if the feds came after us. I can't fathom a worse day than the feds coming after us. But Donald Trump has been getting privileges, and maybe they're just and maybe they're right because he is a former president and he is a leading contender for office. But in Georgia, the Georgia sheriff said he's not giving him any special privileges and he's going to treat him just like everyone else. We saw Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, just try and get out of getting arrested. Meadows got arrested. It happened for Meadows. It happened for Giuliani. It happened for Ellis. She's the only one that I saw smiling in the pictures so far of all of them. We'll see if Trump smiles too. Maybe he has pearly whites. But at the end of the day, this is the normative way. I think that's really the key. What's happening in Georgia is what should happen to everyone. Everywhere else, Trump got a special privilege. So this isn't the weird one. The other three times were the weird ones, Lexi.
Yeah, and Andrew, let's put up an image here of who has so far surrendered in this. You can take a look here, of course, among them, as you mentioned, Mark Meadows, as well as Rudy Giuliani, along with some others here. And this comes the day before the deadline. Tomorrow at noon was the deadline for Trump and the 18 co-defendants in this to surrender to the Fulton County Jail. And then, of course, once Trump does arrive and have his mugshot taken, he'll be added to this list as well. When you look at the 18 co-defendants that are also listed in this, number one, are you surprised by how many co-defendants there are? And obviously, just considering this was such a lengthy investigation, years long, are you surprised by the number of co-defendants who are also included in this?
I think I'm more surprised about the 30 unindicted co-conspirators and to see who they're going to be. We have 19 now that are indicted, 19 people after a 2.5-year investigation. But you have to be sitting there if you were part of this or involved in this and wonder if you're one of those 30 people, if you could be indicted too. There's nothing that stops an unindicted co-conspirator from eventually being indicted. It's a major ordeal. I want to cherry pick two of the people, though, that are interesting. Chesebro. We heard about that in your package before with our Fox News reporters. And what they were explaining, and it's so right, Chesebro just asked for a speedy trial, which spurred Trump's new attorney, this Steve Sato, to do a severance. We'll see if we're going to see these cases go together. The second one of interest, on Monday. Mark your calendars. Mark Meadows has a hearing scheduled where we might see Raffensperger, the Secretary of State from Georgia. They're telling he might be subpoenaed to this. And Mark Meadows is trying to say this should be a federal case because he was doing what he was supposed to do when he was as a chief of staff for Trump. That's another interesting one. So to answer your question, it's not just the 30 that aren't indicted. It's not just the 18 others that are indicted. It's the chaos that all 49 put together in the judicial system, which will always keep drama unfolding, Lexi.
Yeah, and Andrew, you can see all these different images, too, that we're continuing to bring in here as he is getting closer to arriving there at the Fulton County Jail. Andrew, we are going to check in with you a little bit later here. We are going to right now put up a couple shots from outside of the Fulton County Jail as we wait for him to arrive. Andrew, we're going to touch base with you just very soon here as we leave this shot up for viewers. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for that first bit of analysis, and we'll talk to you in just a little bit here.
Thank you.
All right, you're taking a live look overhead here as we've been following the motorcade as it makes its way to the Fulton County Jail. It looks like they might just be arriving there. We want to go out right now to Fox's Caroline Elliott, who is there at the Fulton County Jail. Caroline, thanks so much for joining us here. Tell us a little bit more about what you've been seeing. It does look like the former president has just arrived.
Well, Lexi, from our vantage point, we can't tell if he's arrived yet. We do know that security has this entire street on lockdown right now, waiting for the former president's arrival. But really, that's what we're expecting in the next couple minutes. And if you guys could hear supporters and protesters chanting behind us, "We love Trump. We want Trump." Again, they're waiting for Trump to get here. You do see a lot of protesters here just waiting for the former president to get here, just wanting to show support for the former president after the fourth indictment here. Now, again, once the motorcade does arrive, Trump will see this large group of protesters and supporters. And what we're hearing from protesters right now is that they believe this indictment is politically motivated. They believe this is all part of a greater attack against the GOP frontrunners. But we're also seeing some supporters backing the Fulton County District Attorney's decision to charge Trump and all 18 accused co-conspirators in this case. Now, it's still unclear exactly how the jail will handle Trump's booking process later on. We know up until this point in Miami and D.C. and in New York, Trump has avoided a mugshot, but sources tell us that tonight this could be the former president's first mugshot. We do know that the sheriff did say that was the plan, but we'll just have to see later on what exactly Trump's Secret Service protection allows. We do expect Trump will be released rather quickly on a $200,000 bond, and we're also hearing that we might hear from the former president after his surrender. Lexi?
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking for that, Caroline. And obviously, he's not the only person who is surrendering right now. Other people that are included in this, his co-defendants, some of them have already turned themselves in. So who else so far have we seen surrender there in Fulton County?
Yeah, as of right now, at least 11 accused co-conspirators have turned themselves in, most notably Rudy Giuliani yesterday, and just this afternoon, Trump's former chief of staff Mark Meadows also surrendered here. So again, right now, there are still several co-defendants that will have to surrender before noon tomorrow, but certainly picking up here at the jail. Lexi.
All right, Fox's Caroline Elliott live there in Fulton County. Caroline, thanks so much. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
All right, so giving you several different live looks here as we continue to follow this, as it does appear that he has arrived at the jail. A couple of different angles that we're working with right now. It's a little bit difficult to see exactly which entrance he went through, where he's at right now, but we did see the motorcade go that way, and we have several different angles that we are watching right now. So you can see, as Caroline said, as Tyler said, as Randy said, as we've been following this, a lot of different people who have gathered here, mostly supporters of the former president from what we've heard so far, but of course some protesters as well, a mix of people who are gathered there along the road as he just arrived at the Fulton County Jail. Let's step away for a quick commercial break. Much more to come. Hope you stick with us as we continue to follow the latest here on Live Now from Fox. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Live Now from Fox. I'm Lexi Petrovich. Thanks so much for joining us here on this Thursday, a very busy one at that. Here's a couple of live looks that we are getting in right now out of Fulton County, our aerial view here over the Fulton County Jail. This is where former President Donald Trump is right now as he's being booked there. He'll be getting a mugshot there. A lot of different changes that we're seeing in this. 18 others, along with Trump, are charged with meddling with the 2020 Georgia election. And we've been speaking with legal analysts and reporters all afternoon. We're going to be joined by another right now. Let's bring in former federal prosecutor Doug Burns. Doug, let's just talk about, again, the significance of this to see a former president who is now being indicted for the fourth time. And we are going to be seeing his mugshot here pretty soon as well.
Those of us, who have been in criminal law for decades, there's a number of things that you have to call out. In other words, a mugshot is taken, by the way, so everybody's clear, so that there's a photograph on record, so that if that person becomes a planet, he's not going to become a fugitive, okay? So it's very frustrating, honestly, to try to analyze these X's and O's because, again, it immediately gets translated with all of the hysteria into, I can't believe you're on his side. That's just nonsensical and preposterous. All I'm saying is, let me make a couple other points that I think the viewers will find very, very interesting. I've been doing criminal law for 38 years. Never once, zero, has the government stood up and asked for a speedy trial. Never, not once, in 38 years. So I want that to sink in with everybody. Here, they're asking for this immediate trial because they wanted to affect an election cycle. And that's very, very troubling, seriously, from a criminal law standpoint. Next, in 38 years, I've never seen a defendant, and this involves murder, racketeering, narcotics dealing, and other serious and violent crimes. I've never seen any defendant in 38 years charged in 4 indictments at the same time. So again, you know, all I can tell you is that this is largely just preposterous. And that doesn't have to do with whether the cases are good, bad, or indifferent. That's not the point. What should have happened here is that Alvin Bragg in New York should not have brought that case. That was unacceptable. The special counsel was entitled to bring the documents case. That's fine. And he should have brought just the one case, because the special counsel investigates a whole landscape of stuff and bring the one case. And then the Georgia case shouldn't have been brought because it is duplicative of the other federal case. And it just goes on and on and on. It's you know, not to get melodramatic, but it's pretty disturbing for legal figures such as myself witnessing what we're witnessing. And then I'll work corrupt organizations. It was introduced in around 1970 by Congress. It's a federal law. It was written by a law professor. Often when you get very complicated statutes, a professor or academics will draft it and then Congress will incorporate it. And it's largely been used against organized crime, violent gangs, you know, narcotics organizations, and so forth. It has been abused on the civil side because there's also civil RICO, and lawyers bring lawsuits in RICO, you know, to scare the defendants and so forth. But here in Georgia, Georgia has a statute which is entitled RICO. Most states like New York have enterprise corruption statutes, which are similar to the federal RICO statute. But in Georgia, they call it RICO. And basically, you need a criminal organization and you need underlying criminal acts. And it's usually used for much, much, much more serious conduct. And I expect that there's going to be a vigorous motion to dismiss the RICO charges. And I think they have a shot on that. If they hadn't brought RICO, Lexi, real quick, okay, just allege a conspiracy among all of the people to undermine and upset illegally the results of the Georgia election. That's the essence of the case. But the problem is that, you know, when the case is largely tried in the media before there's even a trial, there are defense points to be made all over the place. So when the former president, for example, called the Georgia Secretary of State and he said, find me 11,000 votes, everybody hysterically concluded, aha, you see that? He was saying, find me 11,000 votes I wasn't entitled to, fraudulent. Okay, that's one possibility in a courtroom. The other possibility on the other side of it is, find me. That's a great question. And the reason he's getting a mugshot this time around is because this is largely like a regional flexing of the muscles situation. When it was in federal court, you know, he's guarded 24/7 by the United States Secret Service. And obviously there's no need for mugshots. There's no need for bail. He can be released in his own recognizance. But this is very much about puffing out the chest. And you're in our county now. You're in Fulton County and you're in Georgia. Very big regional stuff. There's absolutely no reason why he needs to have a mugshot tonight. I get that the people who detest and hate him, you know, are just thrilled beyond belief. Look at that. There's his mugshot and all of that. But the point is, it's just local theatrics, honestly. Kudos to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, New York County DA's office. They didn't do any mugshots, and that was in a state court and in an area that was quite anti-Trump and so forth. So this is really over the top of the mugshot thing. Not necessary. Bail was unnecessary. But it is what it is, you know.
So speaking of the mugshot, do you think that we're going to get a chance to see that tonight?
Yes, I do.
What about handcuffs?
Handcuffs, no. You will not see handcuffs. And I'll tell you an interesting inside baseball thing. I have a few friends who are former Secret Service agents, not surprisingly, since I worked in the Department of Justice, and they were explaining that there's likely to be some tension between the Secret Service and the local court officers, because normally when you go to court with a defendant, they can be a little bit harsh. Stand over there, put your hands over here. That's just part of the day-to-day drill, even to the attorney. Mr. Burns, stand over there by the X. But when the Secret Service is there, a Secret Service agent can say something like, if you touch this man, I'm placing you under arrest right now under federal law. Now, I'm not suggesting that it should get to that level at all, but there is going to be tension if they want to be flexing those regional muscles about treating them like any other common, ordinary criminal. The Secret Service, I'm telling you right now, Lexi, is going to have something to say about it. And I'm predicting, in my typical crystal ball fashion, that everything will be fine. And basically, he'll be in the building, he'll be out of the building, I would say under an hour. Remember, it's not an arraignment, so he doesn't go in front of the judge, doesn't enter a plea. This is just booking. The arraignment's at a separate date, okay?
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap our heads around, just trying to follow not only this process, but then also looking back to the other 3 indictments as well. And I was going to ask you, you touched on it there, the security risks for Secret Service that come with booking a former president, because he is the first former president to go through this and to also be getting a mugshot.
Well, it's completely and totally unprecedented, exactly. And, again, just so everybody's clear, I'm not advocating, treat him different because of elitism and he's important and he's a VIP. That's not the point. The point is, it is unusual. He is under the guard of the Secret Service. They are responsible for his safety and security. He was, after all, president of the United States. I don't care how much you hate him. He was president, okay? And so it's just absolutely uncharted waters. But back to the global landscape of the 4 cases, if you want, I could just briefly walk everybody through what the 4 of them are.
Yeah, and Doug, I'm going to pull up a statement here right now, too, because Trump had posted on Truth Social as he was en route to Georgia, and he said here, why is there so much murder in Atlanta? Why is there so much violent crime? People are afraid to go outside to buy a loaf of bread. One big reason is that failed district attorney Fani Willis, who's campaigning the fundraising off Get Trump, much like the others, doesn't have the time, money, or interest to go after the real criminals, even the really violent ones that are destroying Atlanta and its once beautiful culture and way of life. This is yet another sad day in America. So seeing this, a couple of questions from here, because we've heard that he's going to potentially be speaking as well after he leaves the Fulton County Jail. Where is he restricted to share his thoughts when it comes to social media, when it comes to speaking with media members in person? Where are the guidelines here that he can't cross?
Prosecutor, criticize even the judge, but where one of the federal judges came down, and I agreed with it and sort of predicted that I thought this would be the right way to go, is he should be prohibited from speaking about, very specific evidence in the case. I also, as a judge, if I were a judge, would tell him to take the rhetoric down a little bit. He's used very, very unpresidential language, like calling people deranged psychos and things like that. He's allowed to do that. It's more of a political point that it's unpresidential. But my point is, to your question, he should be barred from speaking about, specific evidence, barred from speaking about, things that are quasi-confidential. He should be barred from saying things about witnesses, which could be interpreted as trying to affect those witnesses, stuff like that. But if he wants to just generically criticize and say this DA engaged in fundraising right around the time this indictment came out, or this judge, more in federal court, by the way, the one in D.C., the second one, this particular judge has ties to a law firm that Hunter Biden had ties to. That's all fine, but not specific evidence, and, tone down the name calling a little bit.
Yeah, Doug, thank you so much. You always do a great job breaking all of this down. We are going to take viewers into a quick 2-minute break. We still have much more coverage to come. Doug, as always, appreciate your insight, and we'll be in touch soon.
My pleasure, Lexi. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. All right. A quick commercial break coming your way. We'll see you back in 2 minutes. Welcome back. You're watching live now from Fox. I'm Lexi Petrovich, giving you a live look overhead of the Fulton County Jail. This is where former President Donald Trump is right now, being booked into the jail there in Atlanta, and he's going to be getting a mugshot as well. Now, throughout this entire process, we've been checking in with our team at Fox 5 in Atlanta, and that includes Fox 5's Tyler Fingert, who's on the ground there at the Fulton County Jail. Tyler, thanks again for joining us here. We appreciate all of these updates. Tell us a little bit more about what's happening right now and what you're seeing.
Well, Lexi, good afternoon or evening to you. Good to be back with you. And I can tell you right now, I just checked the Fulton County jail log. Officially, he has been released. According to that, he has been booked and now officially released from the Fulton County Fulton County jail on all 13 charges he is facing here in Georgia. And so basically the process he likely went through while he was inside the jail
Tyler, I'm going to stop you just for a quick second, really quick, because we have another box up here. Sorry to interrupt you, but we have another box up here showing viewers what's happening. It appears the motorcade is actually leaving right now. So you're right, he has been released. You can see a bunch of vehicles leaving right now, Secret Service vehicles leaving along with him. So as we watch this, just wanted to let viewers know what we're looking at. Continue telling us about how that process worked.
And so with the motorcade now moving, likely that would mean if he's going to go out the same way he came in, he will not come where we are. We're on the Rice Street side. He is over on the Jefferson Street side, which is where some of our other cameras are. And if he follows the same protocols that Rudy Giuliani did yesterday, he will likely go to his bail bondsman to have to sign some documents. That's what Rudy Giuliani did yesterday. So we are hearing, we do have and are hearing that he is about what bail bondsman he did use. I'm sorry, I'm just checking emails that are coming through, seeing if emails about a mugshot possibly being released. I'm just trying to look through it real quick.
No, not yet. Take your time.
But so essentially, if all protocols that they did yesterday, he will then go to his bail bondsman, sign some documents before heading back to the airport, where, as you know, and we've been reporting for hours at this point, he will then speak to reporters under the wing of his jet over at Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson International Airport. So that will happen at some point over the course of the next probably hour or so. He's not really expected to be on the ground that long here. He is really expected to come for this and pretty much immediately leave. He landed, just after the 7 o'clock hour. He got here just about 7:34. And now already by 8 o'clock, he's already out of here. So less than 30 minutes to get booked, which is obviously they expedited the process, and we were expecting that. So the one thing about a mugshot, we were initially told by the Fulton County Sheriff's Office the other day that every single person that the mugshot would be released. But there was a big but. They would send out that mugshot of everyone, all the mugshots, at 4 o'clock, around 4 o'clock Eastern time every single afternoon. Since former President Donald Trump is being booked, at about 7:30 at night, we may not get to see that mugshot until sometime tomorrow. But we did see some of those defendants who were booked in yesterday or the day before that. I believe Jenna Ellis was one of them, actually posted their own mugshot on social media and used it as their profile picture. So that is one way that we may be able to see what that mugshot looked like. Again, former President Donald Trump, though, already on the move. Not sure where he's heading at this point. If all indications are what it was like before, he does have to work with a bail bondsman to get signatures, but that could also all be done remotely. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But really here, since he's already moving, he's likely not coming out on the Rice Street side, already on the move on the Jefferson Street, heading back towards either the airport or to his bail bondsman. But still a lot of people out here just waiting, a lot of supporters out here, well over 100. You see a lot of Trump, former President Donald Trump flags, like the one right behind me, one beyond over there, a lot of MAGA gear as well, as folks came out here to support the former president as he was set to be booked here at the Fulton County Jail. And as, again, we can now report he has been released after going through the booking process and is now on the move once again.
Yeah, we have more video of that overhead to show viewers here Tyler, as well. So it will be interesting to see if that mugshot does come out this evening or if we will have to wait till tomorrow. When we've been talking with other legal analysts, they said there is a good chance that we could be seeing it tonight. So, of course, everyone's eyes, I feel like, are glued to social media as we watch here to see what's going to happen. And so he is on the way now to the airport. And then what comes next from here? There's a lot of questions specifically about when the trial date will be.
Oh, so I'll get to that in 1 second. I do want to mention the reason why we're not sure when the mugshot will come out is because the Fulton County Sheriff's Office media representatives have told us all, we all are on the distribution list. I mean, I can, at any moment, I could get that email and could see it and be able to pass it along to our team here in Atlanta. Again, haven't gotten that at this point, but they have said that it was likely going to be around 4 o'clock every single day. But with the high-profile nature of this arrest, of this booking, they may end up doing that a lot earlier than normal and sending out maybe in a few hours or in just maybe a short while, since they know that there is a lot of interest in getting that picture. And as for a trial date, that it really is unclear at this point. Initially, District Attorney Fani Willis, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, filed that she would like the trial to start in March. Okay, RICO trials are incredibly complex. They take time. It is not something that you can just snap your fingers and it goes to trial, because there are, in this case, 19 defendants. You had one of the defendants file that they want to have a speedy trial, which they are entitled to, and then District Attorney Fani Willis filed today that, hey, we could do the trial starting in October. And so that is going to be something that we're going to have to wait and see. The judge, Scott McAfee, has not made that decision yet, but that is something that we are going to be monitoring here locally, and of course will be that will be passed around as soon as we get more information. But the trial date, again, that's still very much up in the air at this point. Initially, March was the conversation for these 19 defendants, and then the next one we heard update today was that District Attorney Fani Willis was looking for a October date. Former President Donald Trump's attorneys were looking for something in 2024, well after the next election, and so or after the next election, 2025 rather. And so that is something, it's really going to be up to the judge in this case to make the determination how everyone would be able to best proceed, because they have to make sure that every single person involved in this case is able to have the legal counsel and be able, that those attorneys and those lawyers can be able to have the best defense for every single person involved in this case. And that does take time. RICO cases, racketeering cases are very long. I mean, right now, Georgia is dealing with the YSL trial, the Young Slime Life. It is the gang and racketeering trial that's been going on since January. They have not seated a jury in that case. That's been going on since January. We are now in August, almost September, and they still haven't even selected all the jurors yet, or any of the jurors yet, to even get that trial started. And that's a RICO trial. So that's something, unfortunately, we're going to have to continue to monitor about when something like this unfolds, because of the fact that it is just it's going to be such a complex case to bring to trial here. Lexi?
Sure. Tyler, thanks so much. Great job giving us a recap of what we need to know right now. We really appreciate that update, and we're going to continue to check in with you guys. So as of now, he has left the Fulton County Jail. Tyler Fingert there reporting live from Atlanta. Tyler, we'll talk soon.
Have a good one.
All right, and you're taking a live look here overhead as we're watching this motorcade here head back to the Atlanta airport. And now former President Trump is going to head back to Bedminster. But we are expecting some sort of commentary here, potentially at the airport before he gets on his plane, to react to all that happened today. And again, that mugshot, everybody is wondering about. When are we going to see it? How long will that take? Tyler giving us a good explanation there of why this can be so complex and why we don't know exactly what the timing looks like with that just yet. But let's take a quick commercial break here. We still have much more to bring you. So many live looks as we're following this happening live in real time. The motorcade heading there back to the Atlanta airport. Will take off then from Bedminster. All of this happening very quickly, a very quick moving process from the moment he landed to the moment he got to the Fulton County Jail, back in the vehicle to head to the airport in Atlanta again. So we're going to continue to take you through this step by step. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm Lexi Petrovich. Thanks for joining us here. We're giving you a couple of different live looks that we're following right now. Our Skyfox overhead, the motorcade as the former president just left the Fulton County Jail, is heading back to the airport in Atlanta before taking off for Bedminster, where he arrived from earlier today. We've been watching this all happen step by step as this has unfolded. The fourth indictment here now of a former president, and also the first former president who will be getting a mugshot. So a lot of major firsts here that we're following. And in the meantime, we've been checking in with our reporters that are really all across Atlanta right now, giving us exactly step-by-step updates of what we need to know and what is happening. And that's exactly what we want to continue to do right now and go out to Fox 5's Randy Travis, who is still at the Fulton County Jail. Randy, that was pretty quick, but it was what we expected.
It was quick, Lexi. Yes, Donald Trump is now officially Fulton County prisoner 2313827. He arrived here about 7:35. His motorcade came in the back entrance, the more secure of the two entrances here at the Fulton County Jail. Went inside, took about 20 minutes, as you mentioned, got his mugshot taken, fingerprinted, a few other particulars, and in 20 minutes he was back out the door, exited the same way he came, and is now heading to Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, where he will board his Boeing 757 and head back home to his golf club in New Jersey. Yes, 20 minutes is all it took for him to be in there. I'll tell you who's disappointed. All these people behind me, hundreds of people have gathered here throughout the day, hoping to at least catch a glimpse of him, show him their support. They didn't see him, he didn't see them. But I talked to one who said that it's not an entire waste of time because they were out here behind us and other reporters talking to them and expressing their opinion, their very strong opinion about this indictment. Yeah, Donald Trump had the highest bond of any of the 19 defendants, $200,000. He has to put up 10% of that, $20,000, to a bonding company. He is arranging that, or did arrange that as far as I know. You know, yesterday Rudy Giuliani had to actually stop off at a bonding company after he left the jail. He stopped off at, I think it was a Second Chance bonding company. Donald Trump has a different one, I understand. He may have worked that out before. You are seeing more about his motorcade, obviously, than I can. If it's still heading toward Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, then he has already worked out those bond requirements. But yes, we are expecting to say something when he gets to his plane, just like he did after his indictment and arraignment in D.C. on the federal charges that Jack Smith filed against him a few months ago. We should see what he says about the charges, about this community, perhaps what he saw along the way. Very eager to hear what the former president has to say about his experiences here in Fulton County tonight.
Yeah, and Randy, we do have some video up. He is on the way to the airport to answer your question there. We also spoke with your colleague, Tyler Fingert, and I don't know how close you guys are to one another, but to be clear, you didn't get a look at the motorcade or at him on your side either then, right?
That's correct. So we are on the Rice Street side. There's another side called the Jefferson Street side, and we have a crew over there as well, but it's far more restricted, if you can believe that, than this side over here. They have blocked off this road. A lot of folks came and we were all squeezed together here waiting, but we had a feeling earlier that the Secret Service, if they had anything to say about this, would not want to risk him pulling in with all this attention and people who have not been frisked. I mean, obviously they're fans of his, but there are some who aren't, and you never know.
Bedminster, and as you can see, a ton of security there as expected, and it really has been ramped up this week in the Fulton County area, as not only the former president has reported there, surrendered at the Fulton County Jail, but also some of his other co-defendants as well. Speaking of, let's see if we can get this up for you as we watch him board the plane here. A look at who so far has surrendered along with him. And let's work to get this for you in just a moment here. So it looks like we can't show you everyone's picture with this one up right now. So I'm just going to pull this up very briefly, but a look at the other defendants who have surrendered so far. Of course, now you can add Donald Trump to that list as he just made his appearance there. A very quick evening all around, and we've taken you through it all here as we've watched this happen. The fourth indictment of the former president, the first former president ever to face criminal charges, the first ever to have a mugshot taken. A lot of firsts that we have been taking you through today. So we are going to continue to do this. Our coverage isn't done yet. We'll be following along here as he continues on to New Jersey and bring you more coverage of that as well. In the meantime, let's take a quick commercial break. We still have much more to come. Stick with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Live Now from Fox. You're taking a live look here from the airport in Atlanta, and you can see the former president's plane there on the tarmac getting ready to head back to New Jersey after he just was booked into the Fulton County Jail. And we watched that entire process start to finish and continue on, and he had his mugshot taken. A lot of differences this time around than what we've seen before when we've covered the last three indictments. And it is a lot to unpack here as we follow the differences, the changes, the charges as well when looking at all four indictments that we have continued to talk about. So let's bring in Andrew Lieb, as we always do, to help us get a better understanding. Andrew, thanks so much again for joining us here. So let's talk about what we just saw happen today and what comes next from here.
Well, we saw the booking today. We saw Trump's speech today. I'm going to tell you about the difference in the charges, though, and this is just superficial. Trump, in the booking that came out already, we've learned that he's 6'3", and he's self-reporting 6'3" and 215 pounds, which is interesting, 6'3", 215, and you're saying to yourself, oh, Lexi, why is a legal analyst saying this? Well, interestingly enough, when he was booked in New York, he was 240 and 6'2". So he's grown and he's lost weight since the last charge, which I think is kind of interesting. Why self-reporting isn't consistent, that's interesting. But what's going on next is that we have right now an order from the judge in Georgia. The judge is setting the 23rd of October to start the trial for Chesborough. He has not officially severed the other defendants, although Fani Willis has asked for them all to be together. We have a severance motion by Donald Trump's new attorney, Steve Sato. We'll see how that motion goes out. But we know that Chesebro's arraignment is coming up on the 6th of September, and I'm imagining that the rest of the defendants are going to have their arraignment then. That is when they plead not guilty, and we get the ball rolling in this case, Lexi.
Yeah, and Andrew, I'll say this again because we've talked about this too, but we're going to continue to recap all of the main points here. And each of the defendants in this, they face a variety of charges, but they all share a single count among them. That's the violation of the Georgia RICO Act. So let's talk more about RICO and the differences that we're seeing when it's used on a federal and a state level.
Well, I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. And Lexi, I have the indictment right here. And what's interesting, I don't know if you see this clip in here, this clip, which is 50 plus pages of this 98-page indictment. That's the RICO charge. So we have these charges, lots of charges, but RICO is making up more than half of the charges, and that's the one that applies to everyone. The RICO charge is a state charge. We hear of RICO, and Giuliani's talked about RICO as he worked with RICO against the mob. But he did his SDNY, part of the federal government. This is a state RICO charge. And what's interesting is it's much broader than the federal RICO charge. And what they're alleging that Trump did in his orbit, these 19 people, and it's alleging, I just want to be clear, I get these calls and these texts and these voicemails and these emails that say, I'm saying he is a criminal. I'm not saying he's a criminal, he's a criminal defendant. This is what he is alleging right now, Lexi. This is what Fani Willis's indictment alleges, that him in a criminal enterprise, a criminal organization, sought to overturn a fair election. And yes, Trump just said he has the right to challenge an election, the right to challenge free speech, but he doesn't have every right, like he just said. And what this charge says is, in what he's being charged by Fani Willis, is that him and his co-conspirators sought out to make false statements and solicit, not in general, not to courts, not in the 60-plus court cases they lost, but to officials, to Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, to federal officials, to election officials, to the vice president. We saw Pence last night talking about this. Not only did they do this, but Chesebro, one of the co-conspirators, created a whole fake elector scheme where people would pose and pretend like they were the people that were signing the electors for the people that were voted for from the state of Georgia. And they signed these documents fraudulently, fraud documents. Like if I was to sign your deed transferring it to me on your house, a fraud. And they transferred that to the Senate. And they transferred that to National Archives. That's what they're being charged with. And do we know if that's true? No, because that's why we have a trial before a jury with evidence. But that is the allegation, not challenging an election through the court system, challenging it by leaning on, putting pressure on, manipulating, bullying officials to change the result. And that's what we're here about today, Lexi.
Yeah, Andrew, and we always appreciate your insight here as we show viewers the plane getting ready to take off from Atlanta to New Jersey. And let's talk about the evidence here. This was a years-long investigation. The role that the phone call with Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, what did that play in this case? Because, of course, Andrew, every time we talk about this, there's two sides to every story, every time there's allegations like this. What is it going to take to prove this, too? Because on the other side of things, you have Trump's team questioning the timing of the indictment in the midst of everything that's going on with Hunter Biden, and then also them saying that he did nothing wrong. This was just a phone call. So help us understand the role, the significance of that call.
Well, I need to start off with innocuous evidence, something that doesn't mean something. There's a call, there's a document, there's another call, there's an email, there's a text. Any one of these things alone likely would not have resulted in a criminal charge. So let's put that out there. Why is Fani Willis doing RICO? Because it allows her to weave together the story and take these innocuous things together that show you what was actually going on. I want to gear in on that call because you referenced the call. Trump calls it a perfect call. That's what he calls it. So if you've heard perfect call, that's what we're talking about right now. And you might have heard in that call, Trump said, I need 11,780 votes, 11,780, one more to win. But I don't know from someone who's listened to the call that that's where Trump's problem is. Trump's problem is that he insinuated in almost an overt manner. It was so close that if Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, didn't give him these votes, it would be resulting in criminal charges against Brad. And also, Trump did this while he was the president. So imagine, ring, 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 Lexi, the president of the United States is on the phone for you. And then the president says to you, I need 11,780 votes. And if you don't do that, you have criminal problems. Think about the magnitude of that. Now, I don't know that that's criminal. That's one piece of evidence. And it's quite possible that Trump has exonerating evidence. It's quite possible that the context can change it. We have an innocent until proven guilty in this country. And when they exchange evidence and we have discovery come out, that's when we're going to learn so much more. But as a citizen, not as a juror, just as a U.S. citizen, I beg you to go listen to the call yourself. Don't take my word for it. Don't listen to what others tell you. Don't listen to what Trump tells you. Listen to yourself. You're smart enough. You know enough. Listen to the call, and you decide if that was a perfect call, if that was a good call. Don't just listen to the clip. The whole hour of it, it's worth listening to. I think that's a key to the American people coming to a legitimacy in what's going on right now, Lexi.
Sure, and Andrew, what about the penalties that come with this? What's the shortest amount of time that we could see if there are any convictions here, not only with Trump, but the other defendants who are facing charges as well? And what's the longest amount of time that could be at stake here?
Well, we have to start off with that Trump is, I believe, 78 right now. And so that's relevant. It's relevant when you're being charged with these crimes and you're that age. When you deal with the RICO stuff, we're talking a minimum of 5 years.
I'm going to ask you to stand by for us here. I want to get to Greg Bluestein, a reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, somebody who has been following this case, this issue for years. And Greg, here we are again with Georgia in the spotlight in a big way. From a political perspective, it's one of the most important battlegrounds in the 2024 election. And our team's reporting is that there has been some concern bubbling inside the Trump orbit about how this plays for him down the road, not in a primary, but in a general election. Talk us through what you're seeing and hearing from your sources.
Exactly. Donald Trump has a dominant lead in Georgia Republican primaries, just like he has in primaries around the nation in early polling. But it's the general election that Republicans are very worried about because they don't see a conceivable path to victory in November 2024 without winning a state like Georgia. They feel like if Georgia's gone, then it's over for them. You know, Chris Christie has been all over Georgia saying that very message as a reason why, if not him, Republican voters should back someone other than Donald Trump because they fear that if Donald Trump's on the ballot, he is doomed in Georgia. And you know, there's data points pointing to that, right? There's a significant block of swing and independent voters who just can't stomach Donald Trump, and they can't stomach voting for Donald Trump's allies. And we've seen that in 2020, 2021, and 2022.
Greg, what can you tell our viewers about the DA here, Fani Willis? What should people know about her and understand about her? I know she was elected, she beat her former boss, but what else should we know?
Yeah, well, you're right. She beat her former boss, which was a huge deal because he was a long-time incumbent who really struck fear in the hearts of many lawyers and people around the community here in Atlanta. She's gone after corrupt teachers. She's gone after drug dealers. She's gone after street gangs. She's someone who's an expert in RICO law. A decade ago, she helmed the prosecution of a massive corruption and a cheating scandal involving Atlanta Public Schools and secured prosecutions and plea deals from most of the defendants in that case. So this is someone not to be trifled with, and she has been working on this case for more than 2 years. That's why we're seeing her ready to take it to trial, even if it's speedy, even if it's quicker than many legal experts anticipated.
Former President Trump, active, of course, online as he has been from the second that he jumped into the campaign back in 2015. In just the last couple of seconds here, posting video of himself on the tarmac, publicly, of course, pointing to the moment that he is in. He's already posted on his online social media platform about his arrest, his booking procedures, etc. And we should also note here, if you are watching us on a second screen here, if you're going back and forth, there is a bunch of fake mugshots circulating online. Those are not the real deal, but it is indicative here of the, as Tom has said, and I think rightly so, the iconic image that we expect to see coming out from the former president's booking, Greg.
Yeah, we might not see that image tonight. We might not see it early tomorrow morning. We expect to see it, though. But at the same time, look, even Donald Trump has promoted those fake images to sell T-shirts and merchandise for his campaign. So be very wary of those images you see unless they have the Fulton County Jail watermark and you're seeing it from trusted sources. But it's going to be iconic instantly. It's going to be on front pages of newspapers. It's going to be an image our kids grow up with. So it's really it's just this weird feeling right now, sensing that this image is almost going to be out, and it's going to be something that we remember for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, and you wonder if there's a safety aspect to this, right? Do they want to release it at a certain time to make sure that it doesn't lead to people seeing the images and maybe getting upset and then doing something else? I'm sure they're taking all that into consideration. Greg, stand by for us. I do want to bring in Chuck Todd again. As we talk about, this mugshot we may or may not see tonight, we know the president has raised a lot of money through these various indictments. If you count up all the criminal charges, I think he's being charged with more than 90 different crimes. It's costing him a lot of money. It's going to cost him millions of dollars, but he's able to raise money. Explain to our viewers how that process is working, because he's paying with these legal fees really through some of his political moves, correct?
He is. This first began, before he was an active candidate. He had the RNC, believe it or not, paying some of his legal fees. When he became an active candidate, they had to get rid of that deal. So then he used his super PAC. But he's using all political money. He's raising money from others to do this. It's not illegal, but he's not using he's not calling it a legal defense fund, right? He is just simply using his campaign rhetoric to raise this money to pay these lawyers. And, that's it reminds you that he has to keep running in order to defend himself. And in order to defend himself, he has to keep running. Like, we're in this sort of doom loop with him between the campaign and the legal issues that he's dealing with, because in order to pay for his defense, he needs the campaign to be active and relevant. So, it's funny. If he loses, I suspect he never stops running for president. I know that seems like the last thing anybody wants to think about is the next campaign. But I truly believe, because how much his legal defense is intertwined with his ability to raise money and be a sort of a political martyr here, as long as he's breathing, if he's got legal problems, I think he's going to try to always seem like an active political candidate.
But what's also interesting here, Chuck, is the way that the legal fees are an issue, not just for the former president, as we're talking about here, but for his 18 other co-defendants in this case. Vaughn Hilliard is joining us now and knows about this. We've already seen pushback from at least one of those co-defendants, upset that she's not getting financial help from the broader MAGA Inc. super PAC supported by those who support former President Trump. Vaughn.
Right. There was financial support for the folks who were going through the January 6th investigation. That was being paid by what is called the Save America PAC. This was a group that was set up to support Donald Trump and his political endeavors post-presidency. Well, that account had tens of millions of dollars in it, and it went towards legal services for Donald Trump and others, but it is almost run dry. And that is where you see none of these other 18 defendants yet receiving any sort of financial help. There's one individual who is actually one of the 19 co-defendants who is still inside of this jail because he did not post bond. He did not come up with a bond agreement here. And, in a last-minute fundraising pitch over text message and email here this evening, Donald Trump said, "I'm going in to be arrested," and was asking for donations. 90% of that donation, it actually goes to his 2024 campaign. But 10% of that goes to that organization, that PAC, which helps with the legal expenses. But Donald Trump is looking at 4 different trials ahead of him here that are going to undoubtedly be expensive, and there's serious questions about the actual extent to which funds are available for others. But the likes of Jenna Ellis, who is that lawyer that you're mentioning, who used to be very much of a Donald Trump ally, she is actively called and questioned where the financial support is, because so many of these defendants, they note that they were acting on behalf of Donald Trump. And right now, the man that they contend that they were acting on behalf of is done very little to support them here now as they face their own legal peril.
Vaughn, stand by for us. Ryan Nobles covers Capitol Hill for us. Ryan, we know so many in the Republican caucus there have stood by former President Trump through all of these processes. And we also know now that there's some movement in the House with investigations and Fani Willis as well.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. And there's no doubt, no coincidence at all that we saw the House Judiciary Committee this morning send a letter to Fani Willis asking for any information that she has related to her investigation that could involve the federal government on any level. They're interested in whether or not she's had any interactions with Jack Smith, the special counsel, who has, of course, brought up federal charges against Donald Trump, which are very similar to the charges that Donald Trump is facing in Fulton County. They're also asking if she's had any interface with the Department of Justice, and they also want to know about any federal funding that is involved in this prosecution of the former president. And this follows the exact same playbook that we saw the Judiciary Committee use when Donald Trump was charged in Manhattan. They did a similar letter and request to the district attorney there, Alvin Bragg, and they say that they're continuing their investigation into the investigation, if you will. And it is in many ways, Tom, just an effort by House Republicans to provide a level of cover for the former president and show that he has some support here at the federal level, and at the very least try and make the life of Fani Willis that much more difficult as she attempts to put together this very complex prosecution. Now, we should also point out that the things they're asking for information about, none of it is necessarily wrong. She's allowed to have communications with federal prosecutors. There's no law prohibiting that, and she has said repeatedly that they've not coordinated their investigations, that they are two separate and independent investigations. But nonetheless, this is the playbook for House Republicans, and it wasn't a surprise to see it happen today.
We are watching now the former president's plane taking off from the Atlanta airport, 8:41 Eastern time, a whirlwind, roughly 90 minutes for him on the ground in the state of Georgia, a state where he is facing now 13 charges under this racketeering law that's typically reserved for mafia bosses. As you see the plane flying off, obviously our coverage here from our NBC News station, from our affiliate, showing the former president's plane heading back. He has gotten support, not just from allies on Capitol Hill, but allies, Ryan, and I'll bring Vaughn Hilliard into this conversation as well, who are traveling with him to be, in effect, surrogates for him. We saw, for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene in Atlanta, outside the jail, speaking with members of our team, other reporters, defending the former president. That is something, Ryan, that he wants to see. He wants his loyalists out there speaking on his behalf.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Hallie. And we saw Marjorie Taylor Greene in the last 20 minutes or so tweet a fake version of the mugshot that we expect to see of President Trump in the next 24 hours or so, but with herself in the frame as a way to show solidarity with the former president, to show that she is in this fight with him, that she believes that his prosecution is unjust. Marjorie Taylor Greene, an example of someone who is as loyal to the former president in the House of Representatives as anyone. Someone else who is very supportive of him as well is the fourth-ranking member in the Republican conference, and that's Elise Stefanik, who put out a statement not too long ago, very critical of Fani Willis and the district attorney's office, saying that it was nothing more than a political prosecution. I should point out, though, Hallie, this is the fourth time we've all gone through this. In the previous three incarnations or versions of these indictments, we've seen the statements and the tweets of support from Republicans in both the House and Senate roll in at a much faster clip than we're seeing here tonight. There does seem to be a little bit of lag between their responses than what we saw the previous three times around. For instance, the first couple of times around, the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, was quick to put out a statement, not only supporting the former president, but then also attacking the Justice Department's investigation into the current president's son, Hunter Biden. That hasn't happened yet. That's not to say it won't, but I'm just saying in terms of the timing from what we've seen in the past, this has been a little bit different.
There could be some fatigue there. I mean, that is possible. Ryan, stand by for us. I do want to bring in a special guest tonight, Nick Ackerman. He was a former Watergate prosecutor. He's an expert in RICO. Nick, I know you've probably combed through the indictment there in Georgia, and I want to ask you, because even rivals like Governor Chris Christie have said that this is overreach, that some of this crosses with the federal case as well. They're not sure this case should have been brought. You've seen this indictment, I hope. What do you think, and is there a case down there in Georgia?
There's absolutely a case. This was not overreach. This is the proper application of the racketeering statute. It was not just meant for mob bosses. I brought the first RICO case. It was based on bankruptcy fraud and stock fraud. I brought the first white-collar case on RICO, which was against 2 executives at Warner Communications. Nothing to do with any mob bosses. I also brought the first case against a mob boss. But what's unique about the RICO statute is, as Fani Willis has recognized over the years, it permits you to put before the jury all of the wrongdoers and all of the crimes that they've committed so that they get to see the entire story. The advantage to the prosecution is that you put all of these defendants under one umbrella, one statute, one criminal statute. Some of these people may not have met each other before, but they all have the same goal, and that was, in this instance, to basically overturn the valid election victory of Joe Biden. This case is pretty simple. It's simply about lying and stealing. Lying about the fact that Donald Trump tried to claim that he won the election, that it was rigged. All of that can be proven to be a lie based on the evidence, just that we know from the January 6th committee. I mean, just to give you a simple example, on December 30th, Donald Trump's own lawyer was writing that they had to file a federal lawsuit that day, and that Donald Trump was in a quandary because he would know that what he was saying was a lie, but yet he did it anyway. And then 2 days later, he talked to Secretary Raffensperger and basically went through all of those same lies. And Secretary Raffensperger told him exactly why those lies weren't correct and why they investigated it and what they found. And then lo and behold, the next day, what does Donald Trump do? Yeah. He goes out and makes a public statement saying that Secretary Raffensperger never responded to any of his complaints.
Nick, I have a legal question for you. You know, Georgia turned out to be the ultimate battleground state. There are sections of Georgia where he's very popular. Fulton County is not a county where he was very popular. He lost to Joe Biden there. I think it was 72 to 26. Would he have a legal argument that he can't get a fair case in Fulton County?
No, because there's going to be a voir dire of the jury. You'd be surprised how many people are absolutely clueless about what's going on. Probably the best example of that was the foreperson of the special grand jury. I mean, she candidly admitted when she talked to the press that she had no idea about any of these allegations, no idea about what they were investigating, and she bent over backwards to actually try and look at everything in an objective way. And she said that. And that's what you find with most jurors. I've been in high-profile cases before in jury selection, and it never ceases to amaze me how many people don't follow some of these things like you think that they might, or see the publicity that you think that they might. And so the real question comes down to every person who serves on that jury: can you be fair and impartial?
Nick, we got a bit of breaking news, so thank you. Just stand by for us.
We have gotten now the Donald Trump mugshot as obtained from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. Again, there's some fakes that have been circulating out there. This is the real deal as reported from our Blaine Alexander. Full disclosure, it takes us like 10 seconds to turn it around and actually get it on television.
And the system is also crashing. We should report the Fulton County system.
The search system, apparently, because there's been such high interest in this. We're going to pull up Gabe Gutierrez, who's been live for us here from Atlanta. And the second we can show you this mugshot, we will. But this answer is obviously a critical question that we've had since we knew that Donald Trump would be booked and processed on these charges, which is, would he have a mugshot? He did. And now we know what it looks like. I'm going to describe it to you. You're going to see it in literally 5 seconds. We are working to pull this up. He's scowling. He is, as we talked about before, Tom, he is not smiling in this. And this is an image that is already, one would imagine, set to ricochet around the world. This is somebody who has global name recognition from his time in the White House, even prior to that. Now, for the first time, and again, the optics of this, we haven't seen cameras at arraignments. We hadn't seen sort of that inside look at these processes. We've just seen court sketches. This is now different. I'm about 8 seconds away from flipping my laptop to show you what this mugshot looks like. But I want to get to Gabe Gutierrez, Tom, and your thoughts too on this significant.
Well, Gabe, and Gabe, look, here it is. We have it right here. This is the mugshot we've been talking about. This is the first time we have ever seen a current president, a former president with a criminal mugshot. Former President Donald Trump charged with 13 crimes in Fulton County, Georgia. And here is the mugshot. We've seen lots of images of Donald Trump over the years. We have never, ever seen anything like this.
Just wanted to take a moment here as we're taking this in. And Gabe Gutierrez, I think you probably are able to see it here. This is something that from this minute on will be not just a legal issue for the former president, but a political one. And I'm saying on both sides of the aisle here, Gabe.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Hallie. And you just spoke with the Donald Trump surrogate saying that, Democrats will point to this and look at the image in front of you and say that a person in this position should not be president of the United States. However, Mr. Trump supporters, and we spoke with many of them who are here today, and they say this is evidence, as they see it, of a weaponization of the legal system in this country. And as you see it right there, it is incredible to look at. A former president of the United States facing multiple felony counts, sitting for a mugshot, something that happens every day here at the Fulton County Jail around the clock. There will be more defendants that go through this process in the coming hours. There will be more that do it in the coming days and weeks, but never has there been a defendant quite like this one. And the enormity of this, it should not be glossed over, as you guys haven't, but the former president of the United States sitting for this mugshot. And I can tell you, I did see the former president back in New York. Still photographers were allowed in for a very brief time to capture an image of Mr. Trump when he was in that courtroom up in New York. However, sketch artists did it in federal court in Miami, but never has he had a mugshot taken.
Hey, Gabe.
Again, this is happening very quickly. Go ahead, Tom.
Gabe, I don't know if there's still supporters there, if there's still Trump supporters there. I would love if you could possibly show them the image to get their reaction. They may have peeled away by now, but I'm just sort of interested to see, because maybe people haven't seen this image just yet. If you get it, come back to us. Hallie, as we were looking at this image, I was thinking, here you have the most powerful person at one point in the world, and today in Fulton County, he was treated as a common criminal.
He was just like any of these other alleged criminals, these defendants here. And part of that is one of the questions that I think we have, and Catherine is joining us here, and I would wonder about this, right? He did not have his mugshot taken in these other 3 cases that he had faced. Largely, the speculation was because he is so recognizable. Everybody knows what Donald Trump looks like. That's not an exaggeration here. Why, in this instance, do you suspect that they moved forward with this particular piece of the booking procedure?
Well, I think it was very important. The sheriff in this case said, we're going to take his mugshot because we do it for everyone. So in many ways, that's a statement that's equal justice under the law. And maybe he should have had it taken in Manhattan and Miami and in D.C. I mean, yes, the purpose of the mugshot is, in case you flee, and he's clearly not going to flee, but all over the country, as your reporter said, and in every courthouse, defendants who are charged with criminal crimes, all of them have their mugshots taken. So he should have, just like every other defendant in this country. He's already getting special treatment because other defendants who had 4 open indictments would not still be free. So that he has a mugshot is, I think, a good statement in terms of equal justice.
Guys, do we still have Hogan and Amisha Cross? Are they still with us? Okay, I want to put them both up if we can. Hogan, I want to start with you. This is somebody you worked for. This is somebody you believed in. This is somebody who, for the rest of your life, your name will be associated with him. It's somebody who you still have a relationship with. Hogan, when you see this mugshot, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I think I was hoping he would smile. He didn't. I think, as I said in the previous segment, it looks like this is going to be something that will be on every literal coffee mug, on every T-shirt. They'll probably mark it and brand it and use it to raise money off of. It is a symbol to the right of the weaponization of government against the chief political rival of the sitting president of the United States. It will be used by the left to say, how could you support somebody who has been indicted, and here's his mugshot? So I understand the gravity of the moment here because no president has ever had this happen, but it's also the 4th in a long line of indictments. And so I don't want to overplay this as if it's going to impact the race. It may to some, but it remains to be seen. There are 2 battles here, one legal and one political. The legal will play itself out in due time. The political one seems more immediate. And right now, we've seen no indication that any of these indictments have really gone to hurt Donald Trump in the Republican nominating process. Will this photo change it? I don't think so. In fact, I think it'll embolden and anger a lot more people who may or may not have been sitting on the fence or looking at other candidates in this race. I think it's going to make people pretty angry.
We are already seeing in the last 30 seconds here, Congressman Andy Biggs, an ally of the former president, post this mugshot with the words, "I stand with President Donald J. Trump," to the point that Hogan is making. Amisha, he has cast this, Hogan has, and Hogan, you know, is a significant symbol to those on the right. Amisha, I imagine it is also a significant symbol to those on the left for a very different reason. Tell us what's in your group chats tonight.
Absolutely. For Democrats and for those who are working in progressive organizations, this just goes to show that Trump really isn't above the law. This is going to be shared widely. Because it is proof positive that what Trump tried to do and thought he could get away with in Georgia in making people's votes who look like me not count, he is not able to do without, you know, meeting the shred of justice that is available. But with that being said, I think that this is also, to a point Hogan made earlier, it's not going to move any Republicans. They're going to stand beside him like they always have, no matter what the indictments or the charges happen to be. But for Democrats, it is more of a, this isn't presidential. This is not someone who should be the leader of the free world or our democracy. This is someone who is a criminal. And I think that they're going to flash this as much as they possibly can. They're going to talk about what the meaning of this is, how close we were to losing our democracy because of the work of former President Donald Trump, and quite frankly, why he should not be eligible or even considered to be presidential at this point at all.
All right, Amisha Cross. Gabe, I want to go back to you. We only have about a minute left. What did those supporters of Donald Trump say when they first saw that mugshot?
Alvin, hey there, Tom. Sorry, I just came through and quickly. I realized we're on a short amount of time. I'm actually here with several Trump supporters that I just spoke with right here. They are looking live right now at the mugshot for the first time. What's going through your head?
I think it's a shame that we have a party that thinks it's all right to arrest their political opponent. Even if there were charges, all politicians are guilty of several charges. I think if the Americans knew the truth of how guilty all of the politicians were, there wouldn't be as much attention as there would be other people.
And I'm really low on time, but I just want to get your reaction specifically. When you see that mugshot up there on that screen, what goes through your head?
It looks like an album cover for like a out of jail album cover.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for talking with us. Tom, this is an album cover, something that the Trump campaign would certainly use this image to raise money they had before. And again, this is something that, former President Trump supporters, see as a rallying call. Tom and Hallie, back to you.
Gabe Gutierrez, our thanks to you. Our thanks to our entire team of reporters and correspondents covering every angle of this historic night, as we are now, for the first time, seeing a mugshot of a former president of the United States.
We thank you for watching our special coverage of Donald Trump's fourth arrest in 5 months. You're watching NBC News Now. Don't go anywhere. A special edition of Top Story starts right now.
People are stressed when they're going out and flying. Why should they trust you?
You're now with this long-anticipated counteroffensive. How's it going? What's the goal?
What will you offer voters that former President Trump will not?
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
Fire has grown leaps and bounds. What you see behind me is typical. How you doing?
Pretty bad.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
And good evening. Welcome to a special edition of Top Story. I'm Tom Yamas. We are coming on the air with breaking news tonight. Former President Trump turning himself into authorities in Fulton County, Georgia, where he has been charged for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And here it is, the former president's mugshot, taken today at the Fulton County Jail, where he was booked on felony charges and also fingerprinted. Trump touching down late today at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. The former president and current Republican frontrunner stoic as he arrived for the closely watched surrender. After he was booked, the former president briefly speaking to reporters right after. Here's what he said.
What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election.
Again, these are the 13 counts right here on your screen that former President Trump is facing. They include conspiracy to commit false statements, forgery, and violation of racketeering laws. Trump and his 18 co-defendants all have been given a deadline of tomorrow at noon to turn themselves in. And tonight we are learning District Attorney Fani Willis has asked the court to set an October 23rd trial date. That's a much faster timeline than initially expected. We're not sure if the former president will accept that trial date, but it's been set. But far from set in stone at this moment, of course, NBC News anchor and NBC senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson has been following this with me all night. And Hallie, I got to say, we both covered the former president's campaign. You covered the president in the White House. Yeah. And tonight you're covering his mugshot. Your thoughts?
It is a moment. It is a moment that is making history. And I think that given this is the fourth time in 5 months, Tom, that you and I have sat here and done rolling coverage, special coverage of the former president, now a essentially criminal defendant, there is perhaps a routine feeling to this. This is not routine. This is unprecedented. And we say that because it's true, right? Like, this is a moment that really is making history. I mean, look at the image that you see here. We have seen countless, billions of images of Donald Trump over the years, right? From his days as a reality TV show megastar to the days when he was at the White House, his impeachment, et cetera. We have never seen anything like this.
You've seen him in gold-gilded mansions, in private jets, at Mar-a-Lago, in the most expensive places in the world. At one point, the most powerful person in the world. And now this.
A mugshot taken at an active county jail that's been investigated for conditions like bed bugs, for example, reportedly, right? I mean, it is just such a stark contrast. And the other piece of it that is so extraordinary is the way that, as he has been since he got into the race back in 2015, almost immune in the Republican Party to political ramifications for what, in maybe a more traditional setting, would be considered a liability. He is sought to turn this legal issue into a political strength for him. You and I were chatting with somebody who used to work for him, who and you know well, Hogan Gidley, a former advisor to the former president, who said, you know, that there's a legal battle and a political battle. It is all one battle, and that's because Donald Trump has made it one battle, Tom, and that's what we're seeing play out here tonight.
It is the yin and yang that I believe sort of runs this planet, right? It is maybe his worst day, one of his worst days on Earth, but at the same time, he could flip this. And as we've seen with the polling, every time he gets indicted, his poll numbers have actually gotten better.
There is a difference, however, right? Because you look at some of these polling numbers. We have it in our new NBC News Des Moines Register Mediacom polling out of Iowa, showing that the majority of Republicans are with him. He is blowing away the rest of the field there as it relates to likely Republican caucus goers. We are seeing it in new Fox News polling that suggests more than half of Republicans do not believe that he did anything seriously wrong as it relates specifically to election interference on the federal indictment. But look at the broader picture. Look at the bigger numbers. Half of all respondents, right? Meaning half of the people who would end up voting potentially in a general election do believe that he did something wrong. And so while this may be an asset to him in the primary, maybe, right? The general is a very different story, and that's why this Georgia case has been so interesting. Watching him in a place, in a state that is going to be critical. We're going to be talking about Georgia all night come November 2024.
But here's the flip side, something we haven't talked about. Do you remember what happened last night? Because I'm sure a lot of the GOP voters have already forgotten that debate. Now everyone's talking about former President Trump and this mugshot and what's happened to him down in Georgia. And if you had a big night, if you're a Vivek Ramaswamy, right? Or maybe even a Governor DeSantis, if you think he had a good night, no one's talking about you anymore. Everyone's talking about this. And you just wonder how that's going to play. How do you get some of the attention? How do you get some of the oxygen when this guy's sucking it all up?
But what you saw on that debate stage last night, and let's stipulate that, like, debates very rarely move the needle in a presidential election, right? Especially in a primary. They can create moments, sure. They didn't try to take the spotlight from Donald Trump last night. There were multiple opportunities for those candidates to go after Mr. Trump, not even on the legal issues.
5 of them were dressed just like him. 5 of them were literally dressed just like former President Trump. Navy blue suit, white shirt, red tie. I talked to Stephen Hayes, who's a journalist who's covered conservative politics for decades, and he was telling me he was inside Milwaukee. Yeah. He said it felt phony. He said felt like there was something missing there. And I wonder if voters are thinking the same thing.
Former President Trump, in so many ways over the last 6 years, has remade the Republican Party in his image, whether the Republican Party likes it or not. I talk to people, you talk to people who are in the GOP, the more establishment wing, who maybe don't like it, but plenty of others do. Now, listen, his approval rating is not sky high when he was president. It was, we've seen where his sort of ceiling is. That is going to be the challenge that he will have come the general. But I do think, to the point that you're making, it is 2 different conversations. The conversation we're going to have from now through South Carolina, Nevada, Super Tuesday, and then depending on what happens there, if he is the nominee, the conversation after that.
There's a debate a month away, and again, who knows if he even gets there.
Well, he's already alluded to the fact. Do you mean like if he'll participate?
If he'll participate, yeah.
He's already alluded to the fact that he will probably skip the next one. He said debates plural, and there was some indication that he meant those first couple. What we have seen, though,
but there's a side of me that thinks he watched last night, and he's like, I can take every single one of these guys, with the exception of Governor Chris Christie, who will give it to him. I think he watched last night. He probably wasn't very impressed, and he may try to get on there.
He has said, though, publicly, what I have heard from people close to him privately now for, frankly, months since we started talking about the potential for him at the debates, which is, why would he go on there and try to expose himself to attacks from Chris Christie, who's polling just
9% in New Hampshire, and that was a good number.
Exactly.
Hallie, amazing tonight, amazing being with you. I appreciate that. Gabe Gutierrez is standing by for us outside the Fulton County Jail. He's been with Trump supporters, Trump demonstrators all night. Gabe, I know you showed the image to some Trump supporters in our last hour. Talk to me about the reaction you're hearing from Trump world, because I know you're also talking to Trump surrogates across the country.
Yeah, Tom, as you just heard a little bit ago, I spoke with one Trump supporter here that said it looked like an album cover, almost in awe for looking at this mugshot. And we're actually getting fresh reaction just within the past few moments from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was here earlier today speaking with the Trump supporters. And she says that photo, that mugshot that you are looking on your screen right now, will win the 2024 election. That is according to Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, echoing similar concerns that I spoke with her earlier today. She was defiant, echoing some of what former President Trump has been saying, but also going a step further. We also heard the former president speak as he was boarding his plane heading back to New Jersey, very measured in his words. I heard you speaking earlier, talking about he didn't seem to have the fighting spirit quite as much as he had before, not going after the DA. Well, if he was measuring his words there, certainly Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and other surrogates are not. They are attacking the DA, saying that, Republicans in Congress plan to investigate the DA and the Judiciary Committee. And this is something that we expect to hear over and over again in the coming months. But yes, Tom and Hallie, we've been hearing, speaking with Trump supporters here all day. They just don't buy these charges, and they think that ultimately this will help former President Trump as he campaigns in the coming months.
And Gabe, as you were reporting, I was just handed a piece of paper. It was a printout of a Truth Social post by the former president. It says mugshot. It has the date. It has the mugshot we're showing right here. And underneath it has election interference, never surrender, DonaldJTrump.com, because we know he's going to be able to fundraise through a super PAC using this image. It's what's expected. He's helping pay some of his legal bills through that super PAC, or all of his legal bills, I should say. Gabe, before you go, walk our viewers, in case they weren't watching, how fast this process was, because it was pretty incredible how when he landed, he got through the whole booking process and he was out on the plane, and the whole process process, I mean, at least through the jail, took less than an hour.
Yeah, it's quite incredible, Tom, especially him making it from the airport here. But then also, once he was inside the jail, the whole process took about 20 minutes. We understand that he may have been able to give some of his information beforehand. It was a very quick process. He was fingerprinted. That mugshot was taken. He was in and out in 20 minutes. And some of the Trump supporters that we were speaking with here were amazed. They were expecting perhaps to catch a glimpse of him as he came in. He came through another entrance just around the corner, the back entrance here to the Fulton County Jail. But so this is a very, very quick process, Tom. And you mentioned something earlier. Now there's a lot of questions moving forward about how quickly this process will pay out. You mentioned the district attorney pushing for a trial date of October 23rd. That was in response to another motion, another court filing earlier this week from one of the defendants asking for a speedy trial. Now a judge has granted that October 23rd date for that defendant, but the Trump team has said, look, we want to separate our case from any of the other defendants that may or may not want a speedy trial. They are still asking for a much longer time frame on this, on these legal proceedings, potentially into 2026. But it does show how unwieldy this whole process is, a bit like herding cats, Tom, as this very complicated racketeering case makes its way through the legal system here in Georgia.
Yeah, 2-year investigation, and now Donald Trump's defense team will have to get ready. Gabe, we appreciate all your reporting as always. If you are just tuning in, we do want to remind you the former president has been booked for felony charges in a Fulton County jail in connection to alleged election interference. And you're taking a look at his mugshot. And this is the first time that we have ever seen a current president, a former president with a criminal mugshot. This man, once one of the most powerful people in the world, today treated like an alleged common criminal. We also understand that he was fingerprinted as well, but again, booked in a Fulton County jail. We know that his other co-defendants have until tomorrow to show up to that Fulton County jail and go through the same process. Former President Trump joins his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, his former attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and 16 others in this case charged with 13 crimes, charged with trying to overturn the 2020 election. Now, as all of this was going on last night, of course, you may remember 8 of his opponents went head-to-head in Milwaukee for the first debate of the GOP primary. The group trading blows on key issues from abortion to Ukraine to the legal battles facing former President Trump. The frontrunner absent, but still looming large. Garrett Haake is on the ground for us in Milwaukee with how voters are reacting.
Tonight, Republicans rushing to declare victory.
To come out as the winner, I think, tonight. I felt really good. I just want to respond to Mike for 1 second.
After a fiery first debate that was really a race for second place. With frontrunner, former President Trump absent, 38-year-old first-time candidate Vivek Ramaswamy tried to seize the spotlight.
I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax.
Others on stage unloading.
Now is not the time for on-the-job training.
You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what?
Mr. Trump's top rival, Ron DeSantis, targeting President Biden.
If you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings, that is wrong.
While Chris Christie was one of the few to take direct aim at the former president.
Whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States.
But 6 of the 8 candidates raising their hand when asked if they would still support Mr. Trump as nominee if he is convicted of a crime. All while the frontrunner appeared in a pre-recorded interview.
Do I sit there for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it's going to be, and get harassed by people that shouldn't even be running for president? Should I be doing that?
Tonight, we spoke with Wisconsin Republicans.
So you were like DeSantis before. What do you think about him after?
I think he would be a very good president, but I think he has to get a little tougher.
Is it fair to say nothing you saw last night moves you off of Trump?
No, it didn't move me off. But it does make me think a little harder.
Garrett Haake joins us tonight from Milwaukee, where those candidates squared off last night. So, Garrett, you've been covering the GOP race for a while now. What surprised you about last night?
Tom, I was surprised at how aggressive both Mike Pence and Vivek Ramaswamy were trying to insert themselves basically everywhere in this debate. That's never been Pence's style. Ramaswamy was always a bit of a wild card. The two of them really took over this debate. On the other side of that coin, Tim Scott, somebody who had a very high ceiling going into this debate. He's great in small rooms. He's a very charming political operator. None of that came through last night. I think a lot of folks were expecting more out of him. We'll see if any of that changes in the next debate, which we're already on the countdown to next month.
Yeah, a few of those candidates seem to disappear at times. You mentioned in your piece the former president obviously deciding to skip the debate last
night. Almost for Trump thus far, because he's the guy who sucks all the oxygen away from Ron DeSantis. I mean, talking to Trump campaign folks who were here last night, it's been clear, it's always been clear that they view DeSantis as the only guy who can really threaten Trump long